A pleasant good morning to our viewers and listeners, and we welcome you to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. I am your humble host, Kellen Bubb. We're happy that you can join us for another week of programming here on the Bubb Report. Now, as we advertised on our program, on our platform yesterday, we intend to have the Honorable Prime Minister of Grenada on the platform. However, he will be coming on later in the segment, as we understand that the Prime Minister is currently in church and he committed to joining us at the 11 o'clock hour. In fact, he committed to leaving church early to join us on the program. So again, Prime Minister, forgive us if we're taking time away from your church and constituency time. We appreciate that this is a very busy time for you. It's your party's General Council, as well as your major rally down there at the Montrouge playing field later today. So we don't want to waste any time. We really want to get into the very first segment of the program. But folks, as you're coming into the room, please do us a favor by, as usual, liking and sharing this week's program. Now, today is the 21st of June, but it's important to note that today is also the anniversary of the June 19th tragedies, the June 19th bomb blast that occurred in Grenada 46 years ago. And today is the 46th anniversary of that tragedy that unfolded at the then Queen's Park Pavilion in Grenada. On that day, thousands of supporters of the Grenada Revolution gathered for a rally to honor two Grenadians who have been named among the heroes of the revolution, though they were Tubal Uriah Buzz Butler, and Alistair Strawn. A bomb exploded under the grandstand, injuring scores of people and killing 3 young women. One of the young women who died was Bernadette Bailey. In fact, history would recall that the Happy Hill Secondary School was previously known as the Bernadette Bailey Secondary School. Bernadette Bailey also was the sister of my media colleague, Jackie Bailey, who was also severely injured in that incident. Now, reporting from the Afro-Marxist newspaper back in the Burning Spear, that's the Afro-Marxist newspaper titled The Burning Spear, in 1981, this is how they reported on the incident. They said, quote, Grenadian Prime Minister Maurice Bishop barely escaped an assassination attempt on June 19th while addressing a rally in St. George, the Grenadian capital. A bomb detonated by remote control exploded under the speaker's platform, killing 2 children and a woman and wounding more than 20. According to reports, a former Army Sergeant, John Phillips, was shot and killed in a gun battle when soldiers attempted to arrest Phillips for involvement in the assassination attempt. The bomb attack on Bishop came just 6 days after an assassin's bomb was successful in the murder of Guyana's revolutionary leader, Walter Rodney. Both Rodney and Bishop were influential throughout the Caribbean islands and South America. In a speech the day following the assassination attempt, Bishop called for mass demonstrations in support of the government and the arming and mobilization of the masses in defense of the revolution, unquote. And here to make sense of the incident that unfolded, or the tragedy that unfolded, quite frankly, I consider that a red letter day in Grenadian history. And if it were up to me, the June 19th bomb tragedy would be given a special designation by the government of Grenada because of just the nature of that tragedy. So, Mr. Romain, we want to welcome you, sir, to this week's edition of the Bubb Report.
Good morning to you, Dr. Bubb, and to your listeners, viewers, and so on. It's a pleasure for me to be on your program this morning.
Yes, sir. So take us back to Queen's Park again. It was called Queen's Park back then. Take us back to Queen's Park on that day of June 19th, 1980. What was happening? Again, the revolution, they were honoring Grenadian heroes. Shall we say that was Grenada's first National Heroes Day, as I understand it? Yes?
Yes, it was.
And so Maurice Bishop and others were honoring those folks. So talk to us about that day. Set the scene for us.
Okay. June 19th. for me, that morning started with school, Grenada Boys Secondary School, right? I had exams on that day. We were doing biology. And so myself and a good friend of mine, Wendell Wilson, same form, we went to do our exams in the morning, and understanding that the rally was for the evening, sex carded for around 3 o'clock. Right? As young persons, my view, revolutionaries, and so, we followed. We were members of the militia. We decided to go to Queen's Park right after our exams. And so when we reached to River Road, my good friend, he said that he's not going. He changed his mind. So I said, you know what, I will go. And I attended the rally, and I was seated, let's say about, if you remember where, or those who can remember the old Queen's Park, right? The podium and then the stairs going up to the top of the pavilion. I was seated perhaps about 3 or 4 treaders up, enjoying the scenery. We had music, and so the parade, right, of the Revolutionary Armed Forces was taking place and everything like that, and was there paying attention and listening to what was going on. And at around 3, let's say about a couple of minutes before 3, right, the parade was about to end, and as it ended, there were 3 control explosions, right, that was held by the military. They used TNT, so it was controlled in a particular area, and so as a like a salute, towards the fallen heroes on that day, right, was very significant. Our first heroes, National Heroes Day and everything like that. So thousands of people were there at the park, and so, and there were 3 control explosions, as I said, right, by the military, just at the end of the parade. And so, and immediately after that, the rain started to drizzle, fall. And as they say, us Grenadians, we don't like rain. When we have rain, we head to shelter or whatever. And a majority of the persons, well, a lot of persons who were at the ground went to the bottom of the pavilion. And so right underneath the podium, and there were areas where when you had sports, and so there were dressing rooms, right, on either side. Persons were gathered around there and everything, like all beneath the pavilion. And Pacadimo Grant, he was basically the frontline speaker, right, for the revolution or the New Jewel movement over the years. And he was the one that took the mic, or was on the podium giving a speech. And so, and he was amazing. And every time I call his name, he reminds me of a young politician that we have in Grenada here, former Senator Ali Gill, wild up and know how to agitate a crowd. And that was his role. Kakadimo Grant, he took the mic and he was addressing everyone, who were in the rally and everything like that. The minister, the prime minister, deputy prime minister, senior members of the armed forces, party members, and so they all gathered there. And at around 3 o'clock, there was another explosion, a 4th explosion, with a little rain falling and so, and it shook the entire building. And all you could have seen is just smoke and little particles into the air from where I was sitting. And immediately, persons realized it was not something that was done by the military, but it was something, a device, a bomb, and so. And the screaming started and everything like that, and it was chaotic. And so, and when about 2-3 minutes later, I mean, I was only 14 years old, right? I left the top and run down to the bottom of the scene to see exactly what was going on. And there it was, persons were screaming and persons was on the ground, blood and everything like that. And understanding it was an explosion that was set there, basically to maim or to kill people. And so, and it was not a good sight at all, And
did the Prime Minister already arrive on the rally? Did the Prime Minister and members of the cabinet already arrive at the rally at that time?
Yes, as a matter of fact, the entire delegation was sitting at the top on the podium. If you know where the podium was, right, or the old pavilion, when you come up the stairs, it was on your left-hand side. And so, and they were all seated around there. Now, the Prime Minister and all the staff, and the bomb was placed directly beneath that podium. Okay, so the intention of that device was to blow away what was on top of it, right? Which included the leadership of the revolution. Basically, the entire leadership of the revolution. Maurice Bishop, Bernard Code, Selwyn Strawn, Hudson Austin, Louison, other senior military officers, and so. And when that explosion took place, it was chaos right around there. The security personnel and so on, you could have heard the general's voice, get the leaders out of here, get the leaders out of here. And the security details and so, they swarm all the leadership and so on, move them away, right? Put them into a Fiat car, and they drove away with them. And it was total chaos.
So let us talk about at what point did you get a sense of who the victims were? I mean, obviously, I saw in reading George Brizan's book, I believe in George Brizan's book, Grenada, Island of Conflict, he does have images in there about the maimed bodies, the victims, the maimed bodies, and you saw people's back blown out and everything like that, people's intestines everywhere. At what point did people get a sense of who really died there? Because I understand, as I said in the intro, you had some school children there who was on the pavilion.
There were scores of school children around, and there were a number of them underneath that podium where the bomb was placed. Just to give an insight as to where basically the bomb was put. Now, if you, as you said, for those who knew the podium, underneath there were some concrete seats, right, where persons could have sit down right there, right? And the bomb was placed apparently underneath one of those concrete seats. So as the rain started falling, persons were gathering around there, right? And when the explosion happened, in my view, why it did not bring down the top is because the amount of persons that were there and where it was placed. So persons basically at the bottom underneath there bear the blunt of that explosion. Now, when I went downstairs in all the chaos and so, all right, the first thing that I noticed was a young lady lying right at the front of the step, right? And so apparently, I guess she dragged away or somebody pulled her away with her entire back blown off. And so, right, that was a young, I don't really know her name at that time. And so,
right.
And seeing that, I mean, it was thing. And then, I mean, getting more involved and looking, and so there we saw two other persons lying basically on the ground at the time, were almost dead, right? The Bernadette Bailey, right? I knew because she was right there from River Road, and so, and the other person I didn't really know, but they were basically lying there, if not dead, almost dead on the ground, and that scores of persons were injured, and so blood all over the place, and that is when most persons realized the seriousness of what went on. And so, and thank God, there were only 3 persons that died on that day.
Only 3 people died. Yeah. So as I understand it, following that that blast, there are theories that, you know, this was all part of the essentially covert CIA destabilizing operations, because Walter Rodney, he was assassinated around that time in Guyana as well. So talk about the mood in Grenada at the time. What was the mood of the revolution? And folks, I apologize for the quality of my stream on my end. My computer is lagging a bit, so you're going to get a delay in the video, but the audio should be fine. We're trying to rectify this right now. But talk to us about the mood of Grenada at the time following that incident. Was anybody arrested? I know that the Prime Minister Bishop called for mass mobilization and so on, but what occurred following immediately that incident at Queen's Park?
Okay, I will just step a little bit back before June 19th, and the mood of Grenada and the revolution was, I mean, it was on a high, because it was basically just about the first anniversary, just after the first anniversary of the March 1379 revolution. So the mood and so was upbeat. Thousands of people came out and so to support. But after June 19th, right, it was basically a solemn day where persons were reflecting and wondering why something like that happened, right? And so a lot of fingers were pointed at a number of persons, right? And so, and the mood of most of the people, in my view, was basically revenge or get to the bottom of it. What happened? And so, and there were all sorts of theories going on, because before that, a number of persons were arrested, including persons like Kennedy Boudlal and others who were arrested, you know, a couple of months before that bomb blast. And it was also alleged that, you know, other persons outside, like his brothers and so Boudlal and some persons within the Tivoli and Poultry and Montreach area were basically involved, right? And so that was based on the information from the armed forces and so. So a number of persons were arrested, including the Boudlal brothers. Kennedy was already in prison for other issues, you know, concerning the revolution and so. And the Prime Minister, you know, who was the chief at that point, chief of the armed forces, he basically called for mass demonstration and you know, for something to be dealt with, counter-revolutionary restruct again. Now, what is significant though, immediately after the bomb blast, right, a release came out on Radio Free Grenada stating that one Selwyn Strawn, not Selwyn Strawn, but Strawn Philip.
Strawn Philip, right? Yes, I heard that name from Lloyd.
Yes, Strawn Philip, who was a senior military officer during the revolution, but had some falling out with, you know, the revolution itself, and he left. He was the target, right? And we must never forget, and as we commemorate June 19th, and we talk about the 3 persons that were killed in Queen's Park, right? He was also killed on that day, and he's also a martyr. Okay, and so we tend to basically forget that, right? But we have to be fair. And so he was targeted. There was a shootout with himself and the armed forces, and at the end of it, and so he was pronounced dead, right?
Stick a pin. Did the revolution accuse, the PRG accused Strawn Philip of being part of the conspiracy to place the bomb at the Queen's Park?
Yes,
okay.
They did. He was. The information that was out there that he was one of the masterminds of what went on at the Queen's Park, right? So that they gave the armed forces that, you know, that energy and so on, the shootout encountered, and he being a military soldier officer, so he was not going down like that, and he definitely, you know, shoot it out with the security forces, whether or not the accusation that was laid on him was true, right? Up to this day, we have not yet get down to the bottom of it as a people, right? But it was definitely a sad day for those at the Queen's Park and even Strawn Philip and his family.
Yes. So let us continue to talk about this. Would you say that set in train? Because growing up and in my research on the Grenada Revolution, it was found that there was a situation where folks started to turn on each other. In other words, everyone became suspicious of each other. Everyone became suspected of being a counter-revolutionary. Did the June 19th bomb blast really set in train that type of counter-revolutionary suspicion that citizens had against other citizens? That also resulted in a lot of folks being imprisoned.
Dr. Bob, you basically touched on a very, very important part of the revolution, because in my view, right, the beginning of the demise of the revolution started around that period, right? June 19th basically fortified some of the things that that basically went on up to October 19th, and you check the dates, right? October 19th, June 19th, and so very significant. And so, and I was saying, after that June 19th incident, a number of persons were arrested, a number of persons were accused of counter-revolutionary, and so, persons, a lot of persons took to the hills, right? And even persons who were, in my view, loyal to the revolution at the early stage, beginning to take a back seat, all right? And then you had the other side, the pro-revolutionaries, who basically took control of the government, and so they were the ones, they were basically ramping up that patriotism, and the revolution must be defended and everything. So at that point in time, you had, in my view, the revolution basically split in two. Persons who were loyal, no matter what, to the revolution and defended it, and persons who were thinking twice as to what went on right after June 19th, right, 1980. And so on. And in my view, as I said, that was the beginning of the downward spiral for the revolution, and so on. And Grenadians who witnessed it would attest to it, the incidents that happened after, and so led to, division among our people and so on. That was not good for the revolution, and we see how it ended up.
Mm-hmm. Were you part of what was called, you were the GBSS? Were you a pioneer?
No, I was a member of the National Youth Organization, the NYO, and also a member of the militia, right? At that school as a student. And so, GBSS was basically in the front line right after, even before and after the revolution. So, as a student there, I took up that mantle. And so, I must also say, and that also led me, after 1 or 2 years, to become part of the army, right? The People's Revolutionary Army, right up to October 19th, 1983.
Where were you on the morning of October 1983? October 19th, 1983.
Oh, wow. that in itself, Dr. Bob, it's a whole
other conversation. So here is what. Because we have to invite you back to the show. Full disclosure, Mr. Romain, I don't know if you're from River Road. I don't think I've ever encountered you, but you're not from River Road.
No, I basically not grew up, but I spent a lot of time in River Road, and so. But I was born in Paradise. I grew up in Tempe. I spent most of my youthful age in Tempe.
So. The reason why I'm referencing River Road is because my aunt of blessed memory, Carol Williams, I don't know if you remember Miss Carol, who used to sell for tourists and who lived in River Road. So anytime I would go, because I lived on Grenville Street, 4 roads at the time, but on Sundays sometimes I would go over to my aunt Carol's house. And one of the people I encountered from going on Grenville Street over to River Road, because I would go up Cemetery Hill, Bell Hill, Cemetery Hill, down in the back there to go down in River Road, was one Bugman. Remember Bugman?
Oh yeah. Oh my.
Bugman. and so the reason why I'm bringing up Bugman is because as a teenager growing up in town, I had a very curious mind about the revolution, and I would always talk to Bugman about what occurred. Obviously, he did not share much, but based on what he in our conversations, you know, he referenced his interaction with Prime Minister Morris Bishop. I understand that he was part of Morris Bishop's security detail. But the reason why I'm bringing up Bugman, somebody's saying that that's my dad. Shay Langdon, I never knew Bugman was your dad. Look at that small world. But let us talk about just the, I would say, the trauma, because I believe there was a lot of trauma from that period. We're talking about, you know, the June 19th issue here. We're talking about what happened on October 19th, and we're talking about the killing of Strawn Phillip. Then the issue that occurred up in St. Patrick's with the killing with the brothers up there, right?
Yeah.
So talk, and that's a final point because we have to get to the next segment. Talk about that collective trauma that really unfolded in Grenada during that period of the revolution.
Well, to put it, lightly, the October 19, as I said, not October, but June 19, 1980, in my view, was the beginning of what I termed as the demise of the revolution. And a number of events, you know, occurred after that, right? After June 19, the mood of the revolution was not the same as the first year or year and a half. Right, the excitement, the enthusiasm, the participation, and so, right, a lot of more work had to be done to basically mobilize the young people, the women, the nation on a whole, you know, to focus on the revolution because of all these turmoils. And again, October 19th, 1983, I mean, the trauma that in itself left on the Grenadian people, it's, you know, it's amazing. And Dr. Bayaudo, I will tell you, the same Bugman you mentioned, myself and Bugman were two soldiers that were present in the operations room on October 19th, right? And saw most of what went on. And so, but that in itself is another program. And I would love for you know, your invitation, you know, to be part to share my story, you know, on October 19th and so. But you know, June 19th, October 19th, the killings that went on right off after June 19th, before and before October 19th, it put a stain, a damp on the revolution, right? The leadership which persons were accustomed to, right? Persons were beginning to lose confidence in them, start questioning the directions and so. And that led to so many things that again, you know, we need programs to basically put all that. But I would not wish things like that on any other nation. I mean, there are countries that have worse trauma than ours, but something like that, October 19th, and so I would not wish that on any of our Caribbean brothers and so to go through that and so, because the stain and so that it brought the pain that it still brings, right, to our Grenadian people. The closure, we have not seen that, and so on. That I really would urge for politicians in particular and community leaders to, you know, to get together and make these events, right, public events, so our young people would understand what went on, right, even after independence. Right, and so some of the good things we mentioned, but a lot of the bad things that hurt our nation, right? We are not able to express it and to bring it out, to let our young people understand it, because our young people have no idea. A lot of them have no idea as to that what happened during that 4.5 years of revolution and the joy and the pain that it brought to our country.
Yes, you are absolutely correct about that, and that is something that I'm very passionate about, and sometimes I feel very sad about it as well, because you ask the average young person in Grenada right now about the Grenada Revolution, or even who the first female member of parliament was, they can't tell you, and it's because we teach more colonial history, more
Yes.
Queen Elizabeth and King history, and royal reader, all of that nonsense, and we do have to decolonize our curricula. We do have to rename our institutions after our own people. And so that is why the government must be given credit for producing history in schools. Yes, indigenous Grenadian and Caribbean history. For me, the only reason why I know as much as I know is because of that oral history tradition. And a lot of folks in my family, my grandmother, for example, of blessed memory, Wilfina Williams, on my father's side of the family, as well as my folks in St. David's, I was blessed to know my great-granddaunts, my great-granddaunts, and all of them, they were very versed in the news. And so I learned a lot of Grenadian history by way of that oral tradition, and that is what got me interested in it. But there is a serious case to be made for that to change in respect of ensuring that we can transfer that consciousness to the next generation.
Because there's so much person that have stories to tell, and they're not given the chance to do it based on the their position or even the opportunities to let Grenadians be aware, right, of part of the history. We need to get our people, our young people especially, to learn more, to know more, right, and to older folks who know of the history. Don't shy away, right, from explaining and getting into conversations with our young people. They need that, right? That is part of the guidance we can give them as they go forward, right? Our history, the Grenadian, history, we can share that with them and help shape, right, their future. That is the way I think we need to go. And I urge our leaders, to continue to support events, where our history is being taught and so on. Never, never, ever to be forgotten.
Mr. Romain, thank you so much for appearing on the Bubb Report this week, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bubb. The pleasure is mine.
And the invitation is extended for you to return on October 19th. Again, for me, it's about, I'm deeply passionate about history. I am a researcher. That is my life's work. Not necessarily history, media, and communication, but a lot of my media and communication training at Howard University for my doctoral studies involved methodological oral history tradition, understanding how to tell oral histories of people. So having you on the program again for October 19th, sir, I would certainly most welcome you back, because we do need to tell those stories, and it needs to be properly archived and recorded. And one of my other frustrations is that people who don't look like us, sometimes I attend academic conferences and I see people who don't necessarily look like us, who know more about the revolution than the average Grenadian. And they are monetizing that. They're monetizing that.
Very much so. But I must warn you though, for that event for October 19th, it has to be an hour or more. You got to be prepared for that, because there's a lot that Grenadians
it will be. I assure you that it will be, because we had several October 19th sessions here on the show, and get some of your colleagues. Please encourage some of your comrades who have been reticent to speak, to come forward. At this point, we understand what happened, but I think the history needs to be laid bare. We have been making attempts to reach out to Bernard Coe to have him on the platform. He's turned it down several times. We have made attempts to speak to other people, and it's not because, again, I want to whitewash Mr. Coe's involvement. He, in fact, accepted responsibility for what occurred and the tragedy that occurred. But the point is that the history must be laid bare and must be properly documented. So, Mr. Romain, thank you again, sir.
Thanks again, Dr. Bubb, and have a wonderful day.
Yes, absolutely. Viewers and listeners, we will take a quick interlude before we get to the Prime Minister. Now, you may be seeing, again, that there is a lag on my end. I will be shutting this computer down, this laptop down, and going on to another laptop and log in from there while we get this my situation sorted. My producer will be working on the back end. So hopefully when I return, the quality of the stream should be much better. So please stand by for that. And we do have, following the Prime Minister's interview, we do have an exclusive interview. We have an exclusive interview concerning energy developments in Grenada. You do not want to miss that. I will be announcing that during the Prime Minister's interview as well. So folks, please stand by. please stand by for this quick break, and we'll be right back after this. So producer, if you can just tee up that video that we have there as we await the Prime Minister's arrival. Listeners, we welcome you back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. We are indeed happy that you're able to stay with us for this week's program. And as you're coming into the room, we know that everyone is anticipating the Prime Minister's conversation with your humble servant momentarily. But as you're coming into the room, please do us a favor by liking and sharing this week's live stream. If you've not liked today's show over on YouTube, please do us a favor by liking, give the algorithm some love, and please share that amongst your contacts on all of your social media platforms as well. If you're also joining us on Facebook, we encourage you to do the same. And thank you for staying with us for this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Now, as we announced last week, the Bubb Report intends to embark on a series that we title Conversations with the Candidates on the Road to Elections, whenever the Prime Minister decides to call the election. He has constitutionally at this point 1 year to go. But we are not waiting here until the bell is rung. Before that happens, what we want to do, as we did 4 years ago, is to begin to have conversations with the candidates who are vying to serve you at the level of Parliament and at the level of the executive arm of government at the Botanical Gardens and at Mount Weldale in Grenada, respectively. We formally announced conversations with the candidates last week, and we had our very first candidate, that's Mr. Christopher Dialli Jr., who is vying for the constituency of South St. George, coming up against incumbent Andy Williams. But what we want to do today, folks, is to take a look at the constituency of St. David. Our next guest is the current incumbent for St. David. He's the current Member of Parliament, and he's also the Prime Minister of the state of Grenada. And what we want to do in our conversation with the Prime Minister, we will have some very brief moments to speak to his candidacy in the constituency of St. David. But what we want to do as part of today's conversation with the Prime Minister, as well as to you, the audience, is to give you some historic context to what has occurred electorally in St. David since Grenada's very first post-independence election, which was in 1976. And the historic data set that we have assembled here is to really speak to the members of Parliament, the people from St. David who served the constituency of St. David over the years. And we want to begin with the late Cynthia Klein-Gary. Cynthia Klein-Gary, most people know her as the late wife of Sir Eric Matthew Gary, but Cynthia Gary has some historic distinction of her own. The late Cynthia Klein-Gary was the very first female member of Parliament in Grenada to be elected by way of the Legislative Council. Cynthia Gary served in that capacity as the very first female legislator from St. David. She later, in the 1976 election, won the St. David seat again on a Grenada United Labour Party ticket. In fact, my research suggests that St. David was the very last seat to be declared on the night of that hotly contested 1976 election, when the People's Alliance of the New Jewel Movement and the Grenada National Party really formed an alliance to come up against Sir Eric Matthew Gary. Ideologically, having an alliance between the Grenada National Party and the New Jewel Movement, that is a very interesting marriage, or that was an interesting marriage indeed. And then we move on to post-revolutionary Grenada here. We have Mr. Danny Williams, Sir Danny Williams, pardon me. He was the Governor General for Grenada for a time, but he was also the Member of Parliament for St. David from 1984 to 1990. He was also the Minister of Health there. He served in St. David as well. He was followed by Mr. Michael Andrew. We have Mr. Michael Andrew right here, Mr. Michael Andrews. He also served as a member of parliament for St. David on an NDC ticket from 1990 to 1995. He also served in the cabinet of Grenada, and he also served, Mr. Michael Andrew, from 1995 to 1999 in opposition before the new National Party called that 1999 election. They did not have a choice really, because the government fell following the resignation of the late Dr. Raphael Fletcher. Between 1999 and 2003, Mr. Jocelyn Whiteman, he served as the Member of Parliament for St. David. Now, Mr. Jocelyn Whiteman also has the historic distinction of being Grenada's very first Minister for Implementation in the NNP administration from 1999 to the year 2003. Then we go on to Mr. Michael Dennis Lett. He won that seat in 2003. He also won the seat in 2008. So 2003, 2008, 2008, 2013. But here's a fun fact about Mr. Michael Dennis Lett. Again, another Michael. He was also the campaign manager to the late Michael Andrew, who he succeeded serving as Member of Parliament for the constituents of St. David. Then followed by Mr. Oliver Joseph. Mr. Oliver Joseph also served the people of St. David from 2008. That's from 2013 to 2018. And then from 2018 to 2022, Mr. Oliver Joseph served as the incumbent there. And finally, we have the current incumbent, Mr. Dickon Mitchell, the Honorable Dickon Mitchell, who is the MP as well as the Prime Minister of Grenada. He has the historic distinction of being not necessarily the first Prime Minister who hails from St. David, but the first Prime Minister elected by the people of St. David to serve in the Parliament of Grenada. And we will have a conversation about that shortly. So let us go on to look at the overall turnout in the last general election that occurred in the year 2022. Now, overall, Prime Minister the Honorable Dickon Mitchell and his National Democratic Congress Party, they won 61.5% of the vote, or 4,414 votes cast in that constituency, followed by the then incumbent, Mr. Oliver Joseph, who won 2,742 votes. He garnered 2,742 votes on behalf of his new national party. And then we are going to go on to talk about voter turnout by polling division. But as we do that, you would notice that in the constituency of St. David, they have a very high number of registered voters. In fact, the constituency of St. David, they have the second highest number of registered voters in all of the constituencies of Grenada, closely trailing the constituency of St. George South, which is Grenada's largest constituency by population, not necessarily by area. Now, one can argue that St. David and Carriacou are two of the largest polling divisions in the state of Grenada by area. So, in the context of the last election, 7,174 people voted in the last election. That's the grand total of people who voted in the constituency. Now, there were 15 rejected ballots during that election as well. And there was a third party candidate, if you will, who also contested in St. David in the last election. But really, it did not account for much. I believe they only got 15 votes in that election. But now let us look at voter turnout by polling division. This chart here speaks to what voter turnout by polling division looked like in the last election. Now, the polling division that had the largest number of votes cast and the highest turnout in the constituency was polling division F04C, which is at the Minorca Preschool. This polling division captures voters from the villages of Windsor Forest, Upper Laura, La Pastora, Stewart Cottage, Argyle River, McGrin River, and Minorca, as well as Vineyard. Now, there was an 80.4 voter turnout in that division, followed by polling division F10B, which was the Penrose polling division, with 80.3% voter turnout. That polling division consists of the villages of Apwetut, Retreat, Penrose, my home village, Belanges, Coles Junction, Latant, and the La Fortune Bridge. Now let us talk about the lowest voter turnout in the constituency. The lowest voter turnout in the last election was found in polling division F12, which was located at the time, again, at the Parliamentary Election Office. Hi everyone. The Bubb Report is committed to being fearless, balanced, and independent, bringing you the stories that matter most without compromise. Now do us a favor. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. You can also watch us on GBN TV every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Catch us on WPG10 television every Sunday at 8 p.m. Your support helps us to keep journalism free from bias and influence. And together, we can make sure every voice is heard and every fact is verified. Thanks for watching.
Don't go there.
You are a technocrat. I mean, you can speak to whether or not it was appropriate or inappropriate for that to occur. Would you have done that as a permanent secretary?
Politicians get the information from wherever source that they can.
That's going to be the extent of your answer.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
There's a lot of noise around the data protection bill that, in my respectful view, is not warranted.
I was one of those making noise, and it's simply because I was concerned about that specific section 33.
Don't go there.
Are you going to be offering yourself up as political leader of the party?
I see you've called me here for much more than diplomatic passports. I don't mind that.
Don't go there.
What is the relationship like between you and your leader, Dr. Mitchell, your boss, Dr. Mitchell?
I'm not sure how to explain how to answer this question at this time. I prefer not to answer.
Don't go there.
They said that you approached the bank for the loan before the election and that it only materialized after the election. There are also conflicting reports around the quantity of monies that were received. What is the reality here?
People try to extort the truth and to make all kinds of things about it. I just stay quiet. So if you notice, I was really and truly quiet about the whole matter.
Well, except with not with the New Today newspaper. The New Today newspaper reported on this, so I'm not too sure you were quiet on this. Go ahead, Honorable. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to answer your question, right?
Don't go there.
I think we just spoke at length about the regularization framework. So
yes, we did. But let us talk, Prime Minister. Let us talk about the workers who are dismissed.
The Bubb Report. We go there.
Don't go there.
You are a technocrat. I mean, you can speak to whether or not it was appropriate or inappropriate for that to occur. Would you have done that as a permanent secretary?
Politicians get the information from wherever source that they can.
That's going to be the extent of your answer.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
There's a lot of noise around the data protection bill that, in my respectful view, is not warranted.
I was one of those making noise, and it's simply because I was concerned about that specific section 33.
Don't go there.
Are you going to be offering yourself up as political leader of the party?
I see you've called me here for much more than diplomatic passports. I don't mind that.
Don't go there.
What is the relationship like between you and your leader, Dr. Mitchell, your boss, Dr. Mitchell?
I'm not sure how to explain how to answer this question at this time. I prefer not to answer.
Don't go there.
They said that you approached the bank for the loan before the election and that it only materialized after the election. There are also conflicting reports around the quantity of monies that were received. What is the reality here?
People try to extort the truth and to make all kinds of things about it. I just stay quiet. So if you notice, I was really and truly quiet about the whole matter.
Well, except with not with the New Today newspaper. The New Today newspaper reported on this, so I'm not too sure you were quiet on this. Go ahead, Honorable. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to answer your question, right?
Don't go there.
I think we just spoke at length about the regularization framework. So
yes, we did. But let us talk, Prime Minister. Let us talk about the workers who are dismissed.
The Bubb Report. We
Kelon, I'm not sure, but I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, let's do that again. I heard something.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Good morning.
Yes, I was saying I was apologizing to our viewers and listeners. I was making the point that on the day that when we were supposed to have a smooth production, we're having a bunch of technical difficulties on my end. So I do apologize for that. But I do want to start, sir, by wishing you a very happy Father's Day. And I trust that children will be treating you well today.
Well, thank you very much. I think the essence of fatherhood is that you have to treat your children well. So I will try to do that. But I take the opportunity as well to wish all the fathers of the nation, both home and abroad, a happy Father's Day, and I hope they continue to serve their children as fathers well.
Mm-hmm. And Prime Minister, again, we really want to get into it. We also have the Diaspora homecoming happening as well. I'm absolutely certain you're excited about that. Now, on DMs with the PMs, you did speak about the specific deliverables you hope to get from the Diaspora homecoming, especially around business development and having really experts from the diaspora participate in the national development in Grenada. So let us talk about the specific deliverables you hope to get out of this Diaspora homecoming, out of it being just another conference.
Yes, well, I think the business-to-business networking and hopefully the development after that is one of the key things we are hoping to achieve. we recognize that oftentimes when we talk about foreign direct investment, the word foreign is the emphasis, but the diaspora has, I think, significant financial resources as well. It has significant connections and significant experience and expertise. And we believe, therefore, first from a purely private sector perspective, that there's an opportunity for our diaspora businessmen and women, entrepreneurs, investors, to connect with local homegrown businesses and to help scale and grow them in various partnerships. So that's one of the things we're hoping to achieve. The second would be to have a greater database of diaspora expertise that we can call upon to help with the national development agenda, either from the diaspora itself or on returning to Grenada, or whether it's a mixture of both being present and while at the diaspora. And that's, or while in the diaspora. And that's one of the key things we're also hoping to achieve. So I think if we're able from a business perspective to achieve those two, I think it would certainly be a success.
Absolutely, sir. Now, back in 2011, there was, in fact, a diaspora policy that was instituted following an inaugural diaspora conference that was held. Your predecessor, the Honorable Peter David, at the time, I call him one of the first advocates of diaspora development in Grenada. Have you had a chance, or has the administration had a chance to look at the diaspora policy? And is there anything in that policy, I believe it was still a draft, that you're hoping to implement within this current framework?
Well, I think essentially we are building on that. We're not reinventing the wheel. I mean, the diaspora just did exist when we got into office. It may not have been as visible or vibrant as we would have wished it to be. And so that's part of what we've done. The fact that we have Ambassador Forrester leading the charge is a clear indication that we wanted to resource the desk. The fact that we're having this Diaspora Homecoming Conference is essentially building, I think, on the first one. And the fact that we've already begun to implement policies that are significantly utilizing the diaspora is part of that. So, for example, many of our statutory boards consist of persons who are in the diaspora. In some instances, it's actually chaired by persons in the diaspora. So we're already using and relying the expertise of the diaspora to help in nation building. And that's just one aspect of it. Some of our main projects, for example, whether it's Project 500 or Project Polaris, are in fact relying on heavily on the experience and the expertise of the diaspora.
Now, Prime Minister, let us get on quickly to your area of remit, and that is the Ministry of Infrastructure, sir.
Yes.
Transport as well. Now, one of the things that I believe the citizens of Grenada got excited about was the pilot program that you rolled out, the SPICE school bus program. That's the name of it.
Yes.
Now, it's yet to be implemented. There was a delay there. Now, can you talk about why that delay existed? I mean, the folks from the Transport Commission spoke to that. But when can students see the benefits of this innovation? Now, I understand that you're also looking to import electric buses as part of that rollout. Who will be operating those buses? And will there be a private-public partnership eventually when that rollout happens?
All right. Well, I don't agree there's a delay. I think what we said clearly was that we are having a pilot. And the whole point of the pilot is for us to be able to test the assumptions that we've made to see whether or not this is sustainable and whether it is viable. So the pilot took place. In fact, we extended the duration of the pilot.
Yes.
Right. That has been completed. And so we are studying the lessons learned from the pilot. One key issue here is that the pilot was paid for by the government, meaning students, teachers, parents, the schools did not contribute to the cost of the pilot. And naturally, as we move forward, and if we seek to expand, it will not be a situation where the government alone foots the bill. That simply will not be sustainable. So that's the first part in terms of the lessons, looking at what the actual cost implications are and how we are going to be able to pay for it. So I can't give you a definitive answer to say we will expand and move away from pilot stage to full operational stage just yet. For the very reasons of some of the issues we've raised, we have to be able to get to the point where we can ascertain with some measure of accuracy the number of actual buses we need. We also have to be able to ascertain the cost associated with the sustainability of it going forward and how we apportion the cost between parents and students, and that the government is going to provide some support. And then the third part, and you mentioned that we recognize that we relied on the existing bus owners who would have allowed or become part of the pilot and use their buses as part of that pilot. we still have to work around the extent to which that impacts the rest of the public if these buses are dedicated only to carrying school children at the appropriate time, because when children are going to school, it's also when adults are generally going to work, and when students are coming from school, it's also generally when adults are trying to get back. So we have to ascertain that part. So we are still analyzing and looking at the various aspects of the program before we're in a position to fully roll it out. In terms of the electric buses, we are working with the government of China and the embassy here through a grant opportunity for them to provide us with a number of buses. We believe either by the end of the year or the first quarter of 2027, we should be in a position to receive the buses, and we will be using the period of that time to ascertain whether, for instance, the buses are in fact given or sold to private bus owners so that they can be part of the pilot, or whether we can find some partnership. I want to go on record to say that from my perspective, I would be very reluctant and very slow to have the government itself running any bus operations in Grenada. From an operations perspective, we certainly would want to partner with the private sector to do the operations part. Where I think the government can support, obviously, is in regulating the buses, the bus routes, the time buses run, ensuring that people don't drive buses for more than 8 hours, so that we can have 2-shift systems. Those kinds of things is where I think the Transport Commission will be focusing a lot. Obviously, as the government, we will have the ability to perhaps help bringing in the buses, and then working with the private bus owners or other interest groups in actually giving them the opportunity to operate the buses.
One of the challenges, Prime Minister, with private bus ownership in Grenada is that you can't get a bus after 7 on some routes, you know? And so let us talk about how we are really going to treat with that issue, because that's one of the impediments of folks saying that, especially folks who don't have vehicles in Grenada, that there's a lot, but, you still have those issues. Is the Transport Commission really thinking about perhaps having an incentive structure for bus owners to operate beyond shutting down at 7, 8 o'clock? So for some, you just can't get a bus. So would that be taken into consideration?
Well, that's one of the key
considered. Yeah.
Yes, that's one of the key issues that we are looking at. There's a safety issue here. I mean, ordinarily, I don't know that someone should drive for more than 8 hours. And so in the current system where you have perhaps a single owner who's also the driver, what you're facing is a situation where if someone starts to work, let's say at 6 a.m., it's almost, I think, physically very challenging and from a safety perspective, dangerous to have that person driving a bus at 6 or 7 p.m. in the evening. So the actual business model of the public transportation system is what needs to change if we are going to address that system. And so what we actually would wish for is for the current bus owners, all of them, as opposed to an individual bus owner driver model, is if we can actually get all of the bus owners to aggregate their ownership into a single corporate entity, whether it's a cooperative, whether it's a limited liability company, and they become the owners of that entity. And what it allows them to do is to hire more drivers. So a owner himself could become a driver for a fixed period of time, 6 or 7 hours, and then someone else can drive. And what that would do is actually create more employment, and then it would allow the buses to be able to be on the roads beyond 6 or 7 p.m. in the evening, or say even up to 10. Because if you run a 2-shift system, for example, from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., that's pretty much 8 hours. And from 2 p.m. to, say, 9 or 10, you then cover the other period. Or if you did 7 to 3, 3 to 11, which is sort of in keeping with, say, the timing that a lot of the hotels operate on, and which is a significant sector that's impacted by the lack of public transportation after 5 or 6 p.m. So it requires actually a business model change, and I think a structural shift in the way in which the public transportation system is organized. But we would have to work with the bus owners to get them to see the value and the validity of that kind of a change.
Absolutely. And speaking of public transport, and of course, the buses ply on the nation's roads. And, roads is something that has been in the news. That's also under your remit, Prime Minister. And that's where we are going to take the conversation next. Now, you recently announced, sir, the Build, Operate, Lease, Transfer program, which gives contractors leeway over designing and building roads in Grenada. But Prime Minister, let us talk about how the state will monitor the quality of work being delivered by the contractors, as well as the accounting oversight that will be in place by the state, which ensures that the taxpayers are not overpaying for the services delivered. Because as I understand it, they are going to do the design work. They are then going to build the roads, and then they will be billing the state for services delivered on those roads. So can you speak to what happens here, especially in respect of the accounting process, but also in respect of the procurement process, and just give clarity to the public on what that would look like?
Sure. Well, first, it's finance, design, and build.
Finance, design, build. Correct.
Build.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So that's the
for the
first
correction.
thing. And so what it means is that well, first of all, we've already gone through a significant procurement and approval of this process already. So the Procurement Act requires us to follow certain procedures to ensure that we get value for money in terms of the procurement of government goods or services, and in this case, the services and goods of road construction. Because road construction is extremely capital intensive and requires huge sums of money, if the government has to finance that, it means the government itself would have to go and procure large quantities of money at oftentimes significantly high capital or interest rate costs. So we took the approach of putting out requests for expressions of interest from contractors who themselves may have the capacity to finance, as in they don't need to be paid up front for the road construction in the traditional sense, where you actually have to give them the money up front and then they build a certain portion and then they send you an invoice and then you have to pay them again. And if you don't pay them, they don't have the capacity to continue with the work, which is sort of how the traditional construction process takes place in Grenada across all sectors, whether it's roads, buildings, etc. So what we've sought to do is to get contractors who have the liquidity themselves to be able to finance the construction, and then the government will pay them after the roads are completed. So that's essentially the financing part. The cost of the roads are agreed in advance. So detailed estimates of the costing is actually provided by the contractor. The Ministry of Infrastructure would review this in detail. And so contractors were asked to submit the proposals on different packages. So for example, the package that runs from the Morris Bishop International Airport up to Woodlands Junction, two or three of the contractors would have submitted their detailed estimates as to what they think it will cost to construct and repair the roads. The team at the Ministry of Infrastructure, led by the Chief Technical Officer and Ms. Dwark and so on, who are responsible for evaluating those bids, would have made the various evaluations, would have entered into a lot of negotiations back and forth with the respective contractors and companies who offer their services. And then they would have made a recommendation to the procurement board, and the procurement board then would have picked who it thought was appropriate in light of the recommendation. And then the next stage will be detailed contract negotiations with the contractor, and then a work plan once agreed upon, and the contractor will then carry out the work. The Ministry of Infrastructure is responsible for the detailed oversight of the road construction, and that takes a number of forms, two primary forms, I should say. In-house, where the Ministry of Infrastructure itself will supervise the construction, and then they can also outsource that by hiring engineering firms who will provide the management and supervision and technical engineering oversight of the construction.
And currently we have, I believe, the Maboya Road is under that model. What other roads are under that model?
Right. So I gave an earlier example from the Morris Bishop International Airport up to the Woodlands Junction. That's one. The second would be from the current Cliff Manjulu roundabout up to the junction with Old Westall Point, New Westall, and Westall Point. The next portion that is on that model would be, in fact, the St. Paul's Mondelez Old Westall Road. That is the portion of road from the St. Paul's police station coming through Mondelez that ends at the Old Westall Eastern Main Road intersection. The next portion that is under that model would be from the Dickon service station up to the Monkuma Junction, and then you have the Mabuya Road. We are looking at also the possibility of the Grandlands Main Road coming under that model, because as you can tell, given the significant pipeline work that has occurred on the road and the damage to the road as a result, we have to also repair that road.
Now, Prime Minister, let us go on to talk about the Reno project. And we know that Mr. Reno is a major contractor in Grenada now. He famously appeared on the Bubb Report, sir. I suspect you did not have time to see that interview. But let us talk about Mr. Reno's involvement in Grenada as a major contractor. Now, he himself, Prime Minister, admitted to skirting planning and development rules in setting up the quarry at Woodford. ignoring demands by the Planning and Development Authority themselves to submit the required EIA that was required for that site. So, Prime Minister, we know that the government did, the PDA first and foremost expressed frustration that with Mr. Reno's obstinance in not doing the work, but then they proceeded to give him approval following what is your involvement in respect of at the Physical Planning Board in respect of allowing that approval to go forward. So can you talk about your involvement, sir, in respect of the final approval? And again, that was gazetted last year. And Mr. Reno was required, and the Gazette did say that as well, was required to stick to particular stipulations in order to go forward with the project. But there are some who are saying that perhaps there is a double standard in enforcement here. So on the one hand, Mr. Reno can say, yes, I will not wait on physical planning, but at the same time, Planning and Development Authority, they're going ahead with enforcement action in Guangkai and other areas. And this is not to suggest that what's happening in Guangkai is also not, again, there's a difficulty there with what's happening there. So let's talk about your decision quality in the Reno issue there, sir.
Right. Well, I'm not sure what the question is. So first, I haven't seen the Reno interview, and I haven't heard the Physical and Planning Development Authority indicating any frustrations with him. So I can't answer.
Well, they said that on GBN's Beyond the Headlines.
Right. Well, I haven't seen either. So what I can speak to is, I think, maybe in a broader sense, what we are facing from a government and a public policy point of view. And I think we while the Planning and Development Authority Act does bind the state, I think we also have to appreciate that the delivery of public services is not the delivery of private services. And I don't think any reference to Guangkai is applicable, because even before we get to Physical and Planning Development Authority, the folks in Guangkai are illegally occupying property. That's a completely different matter to a question of someone who's properly occupying property and is developing it and is either running afoul of Planning and Development Authority. When it comes to public goods and services, yes, the act does bind the state, and where the state is the one procuring the services, we are also required to ensure that our contractors who we are working with comply with the Planning and Development Authority Act. But we also have to balance that against the case that oftentimes, particularly with public infrastructure, there are significant time issues, there are significant urgency and emergency issues that are required. So in some instances, we will in fact have to sometimes go ahead and take development actions if it becomes urgent and necessary in order to be able to provide the goods and services that the public expects of us. And you can see, for instance, that the road conditions in Grenada have deteriorated quite dramatically. The number of vehicles we have on the road has increased phenomenally, not just the quantity, but the size and gross weight tonnage of these vehicles. And it has significant impact on the delivery of public services, and in many instances compromises the integrity of the roads. We've had a situation where Grenada has only had one quarry operating, which we inherited. That quarry has not been able to meet the demands of even the private sector, much less the needs of the public. And so we've had to find ways to try and accelerate and fast track the availability of aggregates, the availability of asphalt, and even the availability of concrete to just meet some of the basic public services that are required. So in circumstances where we may have to do a balancing act between full compliance from a timing perspective with the demands of the Physical and Planning and Development Authority Act and the need to provide the public services, if I get to the point where I am required from a policy decision-making point of view, I have to balance the two and make a determination as to which side I come down on. And that's just the only issue through which I view this matter. There are, in fact, other contractors, I think, were on island and similarly have been asked to go through the paces in order to be able to treat with getting planning approval for their ability to provide public services and public goods. But we have to balance that, because the truth is, if the roads deteriorate to a point where it almost becomes undrivable, or if you have landslides or retaining walls that needs to be built, and it is going to take us a very long time in order to get a planning, development, or approval process, then it means that you may actually risk putting the public safety at risk, and we have to balance some of these. So this is basically some of the challenges that, in a sense, from a decision-making point of view, we have to weigh. Of course, what we seek to do is to facilitate and encourage, and even from a processing point of view, try and encourage the speeding up of the application process, especially when public goods and services are provided. But invariably we will not get involved unless we absolutely need to. So the Planning and Development Authority ultimately is the authority that will regulate this.
Absolutely, Prime Minister. Thank you for that. But again, I think here the concern that people had was one of governance. In other words, Ms. Sereno also expressed frustration with the delays.
I'm not trying to suggest. Yes, I'm not trying to suggest that the Planning and Development Authority is perfect. I think even I would accept that I'm not satisfied with the pace at which applications are processed and the response times. It's not necessarily a Planning and Development Authority issue alone. We have to, the Planning and Development Authority in some instances relies on other government agencies. So for example, the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Health, sometimes they don't have the expertise in-house sometimes to review some of the applications and some of the technical work. So they also rely on other government bodies for support. And if that support is slow in coming sometimes, then obviously delays the response time. So that's one issue. We also face a human resource capacity issue at the authority, because getting planners, getting engineers, architects, etc., to work full-time with the Planning and Development Authority at the scales of pay that we offer is a challenge. And so that also means we are not resource-wise where we need to be. The other piece is that to a large extent, I would say until recently, the fees that people pay for planning applications are quite low. And so the ability to get the revenue to sustain the development authority that could then allow it to act faster is also a challenge. And then if you think about enforcement, if you have people erecting illegal structures, etc., then it requires the police, the Planning and Development Authority, the Ministry of Infrastructure. You may even have to hire a private contractor to break and remove those things, all of which nobody's doing for free. And therefore you have to get resources to do that. So yes, if there are, and I'm sure there is, dissatisfaction with the pace of responses, etc., that's a concern I share, and I think that's a concern the board and the management of Planning and Development Authority share. And obviously we are committed to trying to improve the response times with this. But that is something that is a work in progress. We've only statutorized the authority over the last 2 years, and so we expect they will not be perfect, and there's clearly room for improvement.
Thank you for that explanation, Prime Minister. We're going well. I know I only have an hour with you, so I'm trying to get in some very specific and pointed questions. Prime Minister, you have not moved into the official Prime Minister's residence. I see you're wearing an Uncle Gary Whites today, by the way. I'll just put that in there. But is there a reason why you've not moved into the Prime Minister's residence yet? I know that you said that renovation work is happening, and I know that you articulated that you want to turn that area, I suppose, into, shall we say, a diplomatic complex, if you will. The Governor General's residence, the abandoned Governor General's residence from Hurricane Ivan is there as well. So where are we with that? Now, I had an opportunity to look at the estimates. I did see the estimates from 2023 up to 2026. I did see a vote for the Governor General's residence there, but nothing for the residence of the Prime Minister. So can we talk about what's happening with that building?
Sure. The Ministry of Infrastructure has been working on the remodeling of the Prime Minister's residence itself to make it functional, and the repair work that is required. So designs and estimates have been prepared. Additionally, as you may be aware, with the Office of Prime Minister comes a security detail, and in the past, the premises were not adequate to house them, and in fact, based on my observation, buildings around the Sans Souci area were being rented to accommodate the security detail. So one of the things the Ministry of Infrastructure is seeking to do is to actually build a building on the compound that can actually house the security detail, so rental doesn't have to take place. So that building also, the designs and necessary bills of quantities and so on for it have been prepared. There's some, I think, redesigns to scale it down to make it appropriate. And once that is done, then I think the next step would be to get into a contract stage so that the renovation works actually commence. So the renovation works have not commenced as yet, and that's the reason why I'm not there. I think it's also important to emphasize that the remodeling of the house is being done with a view to make the actual house functional as more an office space, because as the Office of the Prime Minister currently sits, it is very difficult to house, even in the current Office of the Prime Minister at the Botanical Gardens. If you have any delegation size that is beyond 6, it is almost impossible to house them in the Prime Minister's office. You have to then use the Cabinet Office, and even the Cabinet Office is essentially one long table with chairs on either side. It makes it very difficult as a working space outside of just a meeting where you're receiving information. So part of what we're trying to do, so I'll give an example. Outside of those two offices and the conference room in the Ministry of Infrastructure, the government itself has little or no conference facilities whatsoever. So we spend a large sum of money hosting any delegation that is perhaps over 15 or 20 at hotels. And hotels, conference rooms, and so on, which we have to pay for. So what I'm hoping to do as part of
no discounts from the hotel, sir. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Well, even if they're discounted, the fact is, the point I'm making is, if we have state buildings like the Prime Minister's residence or Governor General's residence, I think it's incumbent to make these buildings, frankly, more workspaces than anything else, so that we can be able to host. I mean, I'll give a typical example. If we were hosting a CARICOM meeting or even an OECS meeting, there's no place, no government building where you can host the heads of our colleagues from the OECS. We have to go rent a conference room in a hotel. And it therefore means you're not really hosting them in a sense. You know, they don't get an opportunity to even see the history of the country, past prime ministers, past governor generals, gifts donated to past prime ministers, past governor generals. You know, so for example, on travels, people give you all kinds of ceremonial gifts, which I'd be happy to have displayed in a prime minister's residence, and that future prime ministers can display, and school children can come and visit the residence, and, you know, have a bit of a historic perspective of Grenada's international and diplomatic relations and so on. We don't have any of that. So frankly, there's a significant absence of state buildings that allows us to see the political or diplomatic history of Grenada and its relations with the rest of the region or even the international community. So the hope is that the redesign, at least of the Prime Minister's residence, would allow for those kinds of activities to take place. But that, as I said, has not yet started. And I would probably confess as well that personally, if I had to choose between that and the focus on the roads and the bridges and the schools, that obviously
that should be the priority. Yes,
that has been my approach. I mean, you know, people may differ and say, well, you should balance the two, but the truth is we have finite resources and you always have to choose. And so certainly I would choose, you know, what we've done, which is to prioritize education and roads and those kinds of things. But I also do recognize from a state perspective, it is important, I think, to have the state buildings functioning, because one may ask the question, are you a country or not? You know, and that's also similar to the Governor General's residence. I mean, to have whoever holds the office of Governor General to be renting private accommodation, which is not suitable. Again, you don't have conference facilities, you don't have a place where you can display the history of Grenada or the archives or any of that, is also a little unbecoming. So it is something that we're hoping we can prioritize and get going sooner rather than later.
Very well, Prime Minister. Let us quickly go on. Prime Minister, let us go on to talk about Project Polaris. You recently had a Diaspora whirlwind tour informing residents of New York, Toronto, Ottawa. The folks in Maryland are asking when you're going to come this way. I just thought I needed to put that out there for them. But let us talk about the concerns that were raised with respect to the manner in which the land was sold for the state of at the Project Polaris site. Now, can you confirm what is the remit with respect to the land of the sale, the sale of the land there, and specifically with the Grenada Asset Bank Company Limited? Is that a state entity, and what is the reality there?
Yes, it's a state entity. It's fully owned by the government of Grenada. I think I'm subject to correction, but I think the directors of the state entity are permanent secretaries. I think in finance, lands, and perhaps the Attorney General's office. The Grenada Land Asset Bank was created because we, as the government, one of the things we have to appreciate is that we operate under fiscal rules. And sometimes we have to find creative ways to be able to accomplish the things we wanted to do. And so the Grenada Asset Bank was created partly because the way in which we purchased the land is that we didn't have all the funds to pay for all of the land upfront immediately. So the seller of the land would have agreed, in a sense, to finance the land costs by allowing us to pay some of the money upfront and to pay the balance over a period of time, and by accepting government bonds in exchange for that, which will be redeemed or repaid over a period of time. But again, all of these things were announced even when the land was bought. So I'm surprised 2 years later, people are asking questions about those things. The Grenada Asset Bank is a company registered in the corporate affairs. You can go there and it's a public registry. You can get corporate documents to see it. The title deed for the land is also a public document. You can go to the Deeds and Lands Registry. You can see it. You'll see the amount of land. You'll see the price at which the land was bought.
Let us go on, Prime Minister, because again, I've had Ms. Andrea Saint Bernard and Mr. Dolan on the program to speak to Project Polaris, and they have well, for the most part, they have been able to explain and answer all of the questions that we posed. Let us talk about national health insurance. I know that the JIPA contract was canceled and all of that happened. Where are we with respect to, again, pairing the development of the National Health Insurance Program with the phased development of the Project Polaris?
Well, the pairing of it is absolutely critical because we hope that by the time the hospital becomes operational, we can have national health insurance in place. Currently, the Ministry of Health has received several proposals that it is evaluating. This is a top priority for the cabinet. And so we will take a very hands-on approach in making sure we can review the proposals that we have and that we can select the best partner, so to speak, to help us with being able to get to the point where we can actually establish and create a national health insurance. This is something we are committed to because we recognize its importance, not just for the hospital, but I think for financing healthcare in general in Grenada. So this is something we committed to. We once a month we're getting the reports from the Ministry of Health on this. The last report would have indicated that there were at least, I think, 5 or 6 proposals before it. Those proposals are being forwarded to a cabinet subcommittee secretariat so that we can review them and then be able to make recommendations to the cabinet as to which we think is the best partner, if I may use that word, to work with to be able to ensure that we deliver on the national health insurance issue.
Prime Minister, would you revisit the previous contractual obligations with the JIPA? Are you willing to have conversations with them? Perhaps even not at this level of NHI, but of course they can leverage expertise. We have a Diaspora homecoming conference happening. Is that something you are doing? Is that something you've had conversations with them about?
I mean, since the termination, I have not spoken with JIPA specific to NHI, but I'm always open to speaking. I think our team is always open. The cancellation of the contract came after our own internal review because we were not satisfied that we were going in the direction that we wanted to go. And that's the sole reason. It's not personal or anything like that. And I think the contract was cancelled in accordance with the contract itself. So there was no, but I mean, anytime you don't get to finish a contract, yes, you may say there are financial implications, but I think the contract would have been terminated properly in accordance with the contract itself. So absolutely, we are happy to continue speaking. And if there's a role and opportunity for JIPA to play in the future, it's not something we will discount simply because of this situation.
Prime Minister, let us quickly move on to the area of energy. We know that the working group chaired by Mr. Nazim Burke, they are doing a lot of work in that area. Have they been able to provide any findings thus far with respect to the case of the quote-unquote missing documents and files? I'm not too sure. If perhaps, Prime Minister, you would want to have a commission of inquiry for that or lay that before the Parliament.
Yes.
But seriously, let us talk about where we are with that, the specific findings, and with respect to the fact-finding mission. But more importantly, sir, you have recently had visits with Trinidad and Tobago. The president, the acting president of Venezuela, visited Grenada. In a recent visit with the United States, energy also came up. So let us move beyond all of the fact-finding and the actionable work that needs to happen for exploration to begin.
Sure. Well, there's a lot of actionable work that needs to happen, and Mr. Burke and his team have actually been doing a lot of work. I think I would probably do a disservice if I seek to explain it. I think in a short period of time, and perhaps it's better for Mr. Burke and his team to come on the program and do it, because a lot of it is technical, and obviously I'm more from a policy oversight. So from a policy oversight, what I can say is this. The team has done a lot of work to gather as much information and as much data as it can. We've retained both legal and other technical experts to assist Mr. Burke and his team, and they've provided a comprehensive analysis and report to the cabinet. The next step really, I think, is for us to begin to address both the policy, legislative, and I would say operational requirements to begin to create what I would say the rudimentary foundations of an oil and gas structure in Grenada. So Mr. Burke and his team are working on making those recommendations to the cabinet so we can look at it, and now we can begin to, if necessary, either pass new legislation, amend the existing legislation, form state-owned companies, and so on, so that we can begin that process. There are some significant outstanding work, as you may be aware. Our boundaries with Venezuela is not delimited. Our boundaries with St. Vincent and the Grenadines are not delimited. Those are two work streams that need to work on. Having said that, in the meantime, we are certainly pursuing, and we have pursued cooperation agreements with Trinidad and Tobago, data sharing arrangements with Trinidad and Tobago. A number of the oil and gas companies have reached out and have been engaged with Mr. Burke and the team. We are hoping that we can get, certainly, I hope by first quarter of next year or even last quarter of this year, to get to the point where we can have bid rungs in simple terms, meaning inviting persons to bid to get licenses for blocks is the word that is used, but basically acreage or sea space, offshore species that belongs to Grenada's exclusive economic zone, to be able to see whether they can carry out 3D seismic surveys and potentially engage in exploration activities. So that is sort of the very high level overview that I can provide. We will certainly be coming back to the public and to Parliament, I think, with a detailed report of the work of the technical working group and where they've reached thus far, as well as a communication plan as to how we will communicate what we found, and to be able to break it down and explain it, I think, in layman's terms, so that we can manage people's expectation. Of course, at this point in time, we have the only way you know if you have oil and gas for true is when wells are dug and the oil and gas is coming up. Right, so I want to emphasize that. I mean, outside of that, it is always speculative and highly risky, and obviously highly expensive. But I think the fact that we are pursuing this is because I think desktop research certainly signals to us it is something that should be pursued, and I would say pursued vigorously. But as I'm sure you're aware, it is very expensive to do so, and as a state, we would not have the resources, and we would have to rely largely on private sector investors to be able to push that.
Speaking of private sector investors, one of the private sector investors, Prime Minister, that we were able to speak to is Global Petroleum Group. And in fact, we actually were streaming an interview that we did with them. We have to give preeminence to the Prime Minister of the country. He comes first, and you're busy, sir, with today's General Counsel. But let us talk about the communication you've been having with them. I know that they said that they dug the Nutmeg well, and that well was capped, and there were other issues there around, again, whether or not they were communicating with the government or not. But can you talk about, in respect of, and perhaps the working group can speak more to this, but I'm not sure if the working group communicated with you on this, with respect to GPG's role in Grenada's maritime space. We know that they have several blocks that were licensed for them and so on. So can you talk about what communication you have been having with them, at least at the level of the technical working group?
Well, certainly, I think I can let you know that the technical working group has made several efforts to remain in communication with GPG and to request documents from them. A committee was even formed based on some of the contractual arrangements to work with GPG. My overall sense is that it has not generally been successful. And so at this point, I don't want to speak, I think, without the benefit of the technical working group and the Attorney General's office. In terms of the nature of the relationship between GPG and the government at this point. But I would certainly say it has not been, from where I sit, productive.
It has not been productive. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Very well. Do you get a sense of perhaps why that is?
No, and I would be speculating. I mean, so I'll give an example. I know there are documents that have been requested that have not been provided. For example, certainly that's the briefing I have. You know, if the documents are not being provided, then how are you going to have a working relationship, for example? If meetings are scheduled and you don't come to the meetings, or you find excuses for not showing up at the meetings, then again, how are you going to have a productive relationship if that is not taking place? So I can't speculate as to why, but I think, you know, if you look at the history of where we are, they've had certainly an opportunity for an extended period of time under the former administration, 4 years under our administration, I think, to prove their capacity to do what they might have contracted to do. And from where I sit, they have not done so.
And there was a major announcement, you know, on the eve of an election. Famously, we found oil, right? Remember that?
Yes.
Prime Minister, let us go on to talk about foreign policy, and then we will have 1 or 2 questions finally on the state of politics. And I do have, Prime Minister, a bell here. Do you want that bell for later today? You intend to ring the bell, sir?
Well, as a man from Pomerose, you'd probably appreciate a conch shell is more appropriate. We're entering into the conch shell season. So
yeah, we are. So
yes,
not necessarily the bell season. I'll get a conch shell next time, sir.
Yes.
Very well. A foreign policy, sir. You know, I would say that you found yourself as prime minister at a very fraught time in global history. I'm not sure if you really considered the weight that has on your back. But let us talk about the third country deportee agreement with the United States. Now, it was mentioned in passing. We did have on our program Dr. Stephen Fletcher. And Dr. Fletcher and somebody else, but essentially they were extolling the virtues of having a third country agreement in the context of labor. Again, but there is reporting from the United States that based on what the Secretary of State said, that they're not necessarily going to be sending laborers to the Caribbean. His words essentially implied there. But let us talk about where we are. Is that something you'll be bringing to the Parliament? And where are we with that? Is there a set in stone memorandum of understanding now that's turned into an agreement with the government of the United States around the question of third country deportees?
No, so you would recall that I think I announced and the Attorney General would have signaled that we have a non-binding MOU with the United States of America on this issue. And that I've pointed out, I think for us, one of the reasons we entered into it is because we saw it as an opportunity to potentially get an opportunity to fix or address some of the labor challenges we have on the island. That's still our position. We have not reached a definitive legally binding agreement as yet. I think the Attorney General's office has been working and leading that work stream with the officials of the United States. That's where we are. Dr. Bubb, I think our position is that you get what you negotiate, right? And I think it's important for us to understand, notwithstanding what you might have referenced, the reality is that as small islands, we are quite clear about our limitations. We believe the United States is also quite clear about our limitations. And we believe that we can certainly work with the US to ensure that we don't find ourselves with a revolving door situation that is just going to become more costly, more expensive, and more destabilizing to both the US border and to Grenada, and I'd say by extension the OECS. So we appreciate the political sensitivities around immigration in the United States. I think both the President and the Secretary of State have articulated that the US is perhaps taking more immigrants than any other country in the world, and they feel that they've been taken advantage of, and other countries of the world have not sought to help them with addressing that issue, and that's a top domestic priority for them. There's a large Grenadian diaspora, a large Caribbean diaspora in the United States, so that in and of itself tells you, I think we have to accept as Caribbean people that we have in fact migrated here in the United States, a lot to the United States. So we can't be, we can't ignore the reality. The reality is the United States does take a significant portion of migrants into its country, and it's for American government to dictate their policies on migration. Similarly, for us, it's for us to make sure that whatever arrangement we have with the United States, or any other country for that matter, on migration, that it's in the best interest of Grenada. So from that perspective, as I said, we actually do have labor shortages. We're probably processing record numbers of applications for work permits and so on. But it is something we are still in discussions with them on, and we are still negotiating.
Prime Minister, we are sticking to the foreign policy front here. Yes. And this will be more for a shall we say, an altruistic question. On a personal level, that type of diplomatic pressure, my words, not yours, from the United States, what lessons have you learned having, to negotiate in such a short time as Prime Minister of such a small developing country as Grenada? Because, Grenada is placed in the middle of these very hotly contested geopolitical issues.
Well, your geography, sometimes, we have no control over geography. We are where we are. We are in the Americas. We recognize that obviously the United States of America is still economically and militarily the world superpower. We have had a long and I think enduring relationship with the United States. The fact that there's so many Grenadians in the United States is, I think, living testimony of that fact. And we're in the Caribbean, we're close to South America. It is what it is. I think for us as a small nation, I think there are a couple of things that are important. Principles matter. the rule of law matter, democracy matter. That's what the Americas has been built on. That's what almost all of the institutions of the Americas are about, whether it's the OAS, whether it's the OECS, whether it's CARICOM, of which we are all members. Our position has always been we wish to be friends with all countries. Domestic policies are for countries and their citizens, not for Grenada, and it is not for us to tell other countries how to run their countries. And even we may not be happy with what they're doing domestically, that's not our place. So I think for us, the key lesson here is always to make sure that we conduct diplomacy through diplomatic channels, that at all times we seek to keep an open door with our brothers and sisters throughout the region. And I say region here, meaning the Americas in particular, and that we keep talking. We do not have any capacity whatsoever to threaten, bully, invade, sanction anyone. So the only tool available for us is our sense of what is right, our sense of what are the guiding principles upon which our country was founded and upon which we engage in diplomatic relations with countries and to engage in diplomacy. I think one of the challenges we face in a social media and an instant news era is people feel that they need to make public comments about stuff and not actually talk to the partner or to the country or to the agency that you're dealing with. And my approach is let's speak first and foremost with the people that we need to have the relationship with the countries that we need to challenge with, rather than simply making public statements or issuing press releases when you have not had the courtesy of even speaking or dialing with a country. I think that's the main thing. And then the final piece is this: as a leader of a country, you may have your personal views on things, but it's important to appreciate that your personal views, while they may help shape, in a sense, your approach to things, you always have to put the best interest of the country at heart. And the best interest of the country at heart isn't fixed in stone. And we should not therefore become ideologues to any one idea or the other. We have to be practical and make sure that we try and always sum up or assess what it is the people of the country wants.
That is a very strategic explanation, if you will. I was having a conversation with Mr. Peter Wickham, who complimented you, sir, on your approach with respect to the radar issue there. So it's good to hear you explaining it the way that you did. Prime Minister, two final questions, sir. Prime Ministerial travel, and I listen to you on DMs with the PM, as I normally do on a Tuesday. That's part of my Tuesday evening workout when I'm at the gym. I listen to DMs with the PM.
Thank you for listening, sir.
Well, of course, sir, of course. Prime Ministerial travel, Prime Minister, you have defended with great alacrity your recent travels and past travels as well. And the benefits that comes out of it, I suppose Grenadians were heartened to hear that you actually engaged with the government of Canada on the question of the visa restriction that was placed on Grenada under the previous NNP administration. Many Grenadians, I suppose, were heartened with that. But let us now talk about your travels to the continent, to the motherland. That is something I'm very passionate about, and I'm very unapologetic about it. You are my one of my history teachers, and you instilled in me that consciousness of self, of who we are as a people. Let us talk about, we had the Frexham Bank Summit in Grenada last year. Let us talk about those specific deliverables that we are seeing from those relationships. I know that Mr. Dangote, at the summit in Grenada last year, he announced a center of excellence. We know, for example, that Barbados recently announced direct flights by way of Air Peace to Barbados. What are we doing on our end in Grenada? And I suppose at the CARICOM level, Prime Minister Mia Mottley is currently in Ghana. I believe Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, former Prime Minister of SVG, is over there as well, discussing issues of reparations. But let us talk about, at a CARICOM level, but also at a micro level in Grenada, the economic relationships in particular that we hope to derive from those specific economic relationships, because we know that you've traveled to the continent several times.
Yes. So I start by saying we have to appreciate where we're coming from. I mean, there has been, over the last 40 years, virtually little or no direct commercial or cultural or people-to-people ties between the continent of Africa and the Caribbean, notwithstanding that we are the diaspora. That's the fact. And if you look at our volumes of trade, for example, you see trade is, I mean, it's almost non-existent. Whatever the numbers you come up with,
it's negligible.
It's negligible. So we are starting from a very, very far place back. So I think that's the first context. So it will take some time. I think we have to appreciate that. I think at the CARICOM level, the key thing I think we all recognize is the question of connectivity, because the ability to get to and from Africa is a challenge. The ability for Africans to visit the Caribbean is also a challenge. But I think we've begun by simply hosting things like the African Bank Trade and Investment Forum in the Bahamas and Guyana and Barbados and Grenada and now in St. Kitts and Nevis. By simply doing those events, we are obviously, in a sense, creating the work in progress that would allow for Caribbean nationals, for African citizens to be able to see the opportunities that exist for us to actually create the travel network that we need in order to be able to move. The truth is, Africa will probably end up with 2.5 billion people in the next 20 to 30 years. It is really the only continent where population growth is expected to continue significantly. And I don't think I need to talk about the fact that Africa as a continent in its entirety is perhaps the most mineral-rich continent on the planet. And that if you look at the economic growth of many of the African countries, you see that they are experiencing double-digit growths. So the opportunities are vast from an economic perspective. And in a sense, Africa is a developing continent, very much in the same space, so to speak, as the Caribbean. So then if you add our historical and cultural ties, you will therefore see that there are significant opportunities for Caribbean people themselves to invest in Africa and to trade. It's not just a question of Africans coming to invest here. We also have to see the opportunities for us to invest, because a lot of the times when we talk about lack of scale and lack of etc., it is because we're only thinking about our own domestic market, our own regional market. People who are successful internationally don't think about the American market, they think about the Chinese, the European, the African market. And it's one of the things from a business point of view we have to get to understand within the Caribbean. If you want to be successful and if you want to be scaled, that scale is never going to come from the Caribbean. It has to come from the ability to have more export-related economies. And I think that's one of the key things we have to factor in. Then from an investment and a banking perspective, from a music, food, culture perspective, there are enormous economic opportunities there, again, that we need to look at. Even from the point of view of the importation of food and so on. Everything in, energy in Africa is much cheaper than it is in the Caribbean. Food is much cheaper than it is in the Caribbean. We have become quite good at tourism in the Caribbean. That is something that they are now beginning to exploit in Africa, and so we can actually do a lot of cross-training and help and support in that area with them. There are some areas that they've done very well in fintech, for example. Africa has largely led what I call fintech revolution, which has allowed for many ordinary traders and businesses to be able to leapfrog the fact that they were unbanked to now become part of the financial system. So there are enormous learning opportunities, learning curves, opportunities for investment at a CARICOM perspective with all of the countries of Africa. But on the Grenada perspective, I just want to give an example as recently as this week, which concluded. We hosted a 22 delegation made up of His Excellency Sheikh Jabor from Qatar, who is chairman of the JMJ Group, based in Qatar, together with Premier Invest, which is essentially led by Rene, who is a Cameroonian national and a former executive of African Bank, together with Grow Pro, who is a Nigerian-based company, who visited Grenada for the entire week and had significant interaction with GIDC and the government of Grenada, as well as private sector investors, to look at opportunities for investing in Grenada. And I'm just simply highlighting this because we have to understand that a small island, the vast majority of the world does not know that Grenada exists. They would not be able to find Grenada on a map. And to be able to even get people to fly halfway around the world to come here to look at our tourism plans, to look at potential opportunities for investment, for real estate development, for partnering with Project Polaris, for addressing the very high cost of energy which we have here on the island, which is some of the highest in the world, is part and parcel of what that is driving. So you have to look at which parts of the world are most likely to invest with you, right? It is parts of the world where there might be excess liquidity, like some of the Gulf countries, which themselves are experiencing significant challenges now because of the Iranian war. And also many of the African countries who are themselves developing countries and are looking for like-minded persons to partner with. So that is the sort of focus that we have. Although you spoke specifically about Africa, the week before that we had a Canadian-Indian-led business team here looking at investment opportunities again. And it's not just investment; it's also education, because we have to look at where the country is going and what are the needs that will be required. So that is part of what is driving this, right? The truth is, with business, with investments, any businessman will tell you they may have 20, 30 ventures before one of them succeeds. So we have to continue making sure that we give Grenada an opportunity for investors to come. I think you look at what's going on with all of the multilateral institutions in the world. I'm a fan of trade, not aid, and Grenada doesn't get any aid really, right? Which is good because it then forces you to be a lot more independent, to be a lot more creative,
and self-reliant. Yeah,
to be a lot more self-reliant. So that is really, in a sense, from a strategic focus, because you have to recognize, if you look at Europe, there's a huge war with Russia and Ukraine. right? A lot of these European countries, including the United Kingdom, have had to, in a sense, refocus and retool to deal with their own security. So funding that they might have otherwise had, which may be available for you, it will no longer be available for you because they simply have to actually just worry about their own security and their own defense, right? So we have to look at countries where, even though, you know, from time to time there are wars and so on amongst African countries and so on, despite some of the challenges, West Africa is relatively stable. Whether it's Nigeria, whether it's Ghana, you know, etc., there are opportunities there. South Africa is a huge economy. Yes, it has a lot of challenges and problems, but it's a very advanced economy. You know, and so we have to look at where we can partner with some of these countries so that we can get our products there. We can get investors to come and help some of our folks scale up and meet the standards and so on that are required so that their products can get into, you know, whether it's our teas, whether it's our sauce up, whether it's our fish. You know, so the truth is everybody wants money. Everybody says you need more money in the economy, you need more money on the ground, but you have to ask, where is the investment going to come from? And that investment must come, in a sense, from your interconnection with the rest of the world. It can't just be from the domestic market only.
Prime Minister, finally, again, I still have the bell. I'm dangling the bell right here. Final question, sir. The opposition is, they have announced all of their candidates for the upcoming elections. You've announced some. Are you going to be ringing the bell today, sir, or blowing the conch shell as we do in Pomeroy? You know, we love jabbing Pomeroy. You want to break some news before you leave on the Bubb Report today, sir?
Well, then, unfortunately, the news I'm breaking is that I will not be doing so.
Well, you will not be ringing the bell today. Okay.
So I'm breaking news. The conch shell will not be blowing. Well, you know, it's probably going to be a celebratory mood, so you may have some people with conch shells down there when our culture is on display. But it is first and foremost, I think, an acknowledgement of the last 4 years. It is also one of gratitude to say thank you to the public for taking a chance on me, taking a chance on the National Democratic Congress, taking a chance on the cabinet of ministers who have served, and to show that humility, that appreciation, that gratitude, and to celebrate, because I'm sure you are all familiar with the tales that, you know, we were babies in Pampers, we would not last 1 year, we would not last 6 months, blah, 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 blah.
Also a Jesus with baby as well, you know, baby right. Jesus. You know?
Yes. Well, you know, but 4 years later, we are here. I think our team is you, me, us, stronger together. And that's a testimony to the Grenadian people, right? That us is us Grenadians, all of us, who have withstood the last 4 years, who've been resilient, who've managed to succeed and thrive, whose lives have been improved because of the collective action of the government and people of Grenada. We've been tested, whether it's geopolitical tensions, whether it's hurricanes, whether it's, you know, some of the economic instability, the cost of living crisis. You know, we weathered it all, and we are here together, standing stronger. I think as a nation, we've grown an additional couple of 4 years as a nation, and I think we have a lot to celebrate. We have a lot to be proud of. There are many exemplary Grenadians who are doing remarkable things on the world stage. You know, I always use Kirani James as the best of us, and even during his lifetime, the accolades that have been bestowed on him are well deserving because it demonstrates the true Grenadian spirit. The central bank will be issuing a $5 banknote, and Mr. Sir James, as I call him, will be featured prominently on that note. That's a remarkable, phenomenal achievement because traditionally it is only deceased persons who are given sort of these posthumous honors, and the fact that Kirani could achieve this during his lifetime while he's still performing as an athlete is an amazing achievement, and I think it's testimony to the true Grenadian spirit. So that is what this evening is about. And obviously, it's an opportunity to talk a little bit about the future and to invite Grenadians to be able to write the next 5 years of the Grenadian chapter and story collectively together.
And Prime Minister, in closing comments, as we lead up, there is 1 year before you can blow the conch shell. We made overtures in 2022 to have a national debate here on the Bubb Report with all of the major candidates vying to serve the people of Grenada. Can we get a commitment from you, sir? We did get a commitment from you the last time that you had no difficulty with it. It was not you, it was the other Mitchell. I don't know if you related to him, I don't know, but can we get a commitment from you, sir, that is something you would be willing to engage with? We intend to, as we said on our platforms, to formally write to all of the parties to have a nationally televised debate hosted by the Bubb Report in the lead up to the election that will be substance driven, because that is what we're about, and research based, sir.
Absolutely. I'm happy to have any debate your platform, other platforms, I'm happy to encourage the Media Association and other media practitioners, stakeholders, whether it's Labor, Chamber of Commerce, Employers Federation, the public, to actually demand of persons who are offering themselves for public office an opportunity to exchange views and to debate with each other, to share about themselves, about their own moral or ethical views on any topical issues that may have public importance, and also just policies for the country. I think that is how we will rise the level of debate. That is how I think we'll have better public policies. And we'll set a good example for the youth parliamentarians or students who take part in the Grenada debates, and for others. If we show them, I mean, frankly, I sometimes look at the youth parliamentary debates, I look at the Grenada debates, and the quality, their standards actually eclipse a lot of what passes for debate in Parliament, in the current Parliament. So I think it's something we should certainly encourage, and I hope whether it's your platform or others could be quite bullish on asking for this, and we'd be happy to come on, myself and other members of the National Democratic Congress, to engage in debates.
Absolutely, Prime Minister. Thank you so much. Final closing comments. I know that you have to run along, sir.
Yes,
and thank you again for agreeing to speak with us today, knowing that we did not have a lot of time.
Yes. Well, certainly, I want to end by, again, I think just saying Happy Father's Day to all of the fathers in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. We absolutely need to ensure that we honor and respect and show support and love for those fathers who are being good fathers. And as I've said in other fora, we also have to encourage those who are not to become better fathers and to take their roles and responsibilities as fathers seriously for their own benefit, because I think there's nothing more gratifying than knowing that you've done a good job with your children and for the benefit of the children, and by extension, the benefit of the nation. So Happy Father's Day again to everyone, all fathers.
Yes. Prime Minister, the Honorable Dickon Mitchell, thank you, sir, for appearing on the Bubb Report this week.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Viewers and listeners, that was the Honorable Dickon Mitchell. Again, folks, I know that many of you, well, some of you, because I'm not sure what's happening in the comment section over there on Facebook with all of the invective and all of the insults that have been hurled my way. I don't know what that's about. This was a very respectful engage between two grown adults here. But stay tuned. We do have one final segment, folks. We do have an interview, as I said, as I intimated to the Prime Minister, with Global Petroleum Group. They reached out to us last week. It was a pre-recorded interview that we did with Global Petroleum Group. Again, the question of energy remains a significant conversation that continues to happen in the national community. And, you know, I suppose, given everything that's happening now with we have the Energy Committee that's doing its work. And I suppose Global Petroleum Group, they are now part of that public conversation. They have never given any media interview to any journalist or any media house in Grenada. They have done that with the Bubb Report. So we want you to stand by for that conversation. We're going to play that conversation shortly. And again, as the Prime Minister said here, he is given a commitment to have a debate, a national debate, and we will be going forward. We will be going forward with plans to do that. Again, my PhD is in, part of it is in communication studies, and we debate and speech at a very technical level is part of what my remit is as well. And so I will be bringing a particular level of expertise to that space. And I'm very happy and proud to be doing that on behalf of this very humble platform here on the Bubb Report. So as the election, again, the Prime Minister also said that, that he's not ringing the bell. Folks, I actually got a bell from my neighbor. I got a bell from my neighbor who's Buddhist to see if I can get the Prime Minister to break some news on the program today. But he obviously is going to hold those cards close to his chest. That's one of the powers that the Prime Minister of countries have in the Westminster system. So folks, what we want to do is to take a quick break and come back and tee up that conversation that we had with the Global Petroleum Group, the CEO of Global Petroleum Group, who spoke to the Bubb Report last week. So please stand by for that conversation.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home. Here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com.
Viewers and listeners, we welcome you to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. In fact, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report.
S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
As we articulated in the intro, we are now going to have a conversation with the Chief Executive Officer of the Global Petroleum Group. And this will be an exclusive Bubb Report conversation with the Global Petroleum Group on developments in the hydrocarbon sector with respect to that company's involvement in Grenada's hydrocarbon sector. And Mr. Edward is joined by his translator who will be speaking with us. The translator will be translating. That is Mr. Edward Vasilev, who will be joined by his translator. So this conversation will be unique in that we will be having live translation. So Mr. Edward, first and foremost, welcome to this week's edition of the Bubb Report.
Итак, господин Васильев, приветствую вас на программе Bubb Report, этот выпуск на этой неделе.
Спасибо большое. Thank you very much.
Very well. So, Mr. Edward, we want to begin by establishing a Global Petroleum Group's relationship with Grenada in respect of your interest in the hydrocarbon resources that exists within Grenada's exclusive economic zone. So we want to begin by having a conversation about that history of Global Petroleum Group with Grenada. For the benefit of our audience, what got you interested in Grenada? Hello?
Так, мы хотели бы начать с того, чтобы вы рассказали нам о вашей связи Global Petroleum Group с Гренадой в том, что касается развития углеводородного потенциала Гренады в пределах ее эксклюзивной экономической морской зоны. Поэтому давайте начнем с того, чем вас заинтересовала Гренада.
Бизнес есть бизнес, это первое. Второе, нас связывают давние исторические корни с Гренадой.
So business is business, and we have long the historical links and roots established long time ago with Grenada.
Изучили потенциал и решили попробовать взять на себя риски в нефтегазовом секторе на шельфе Гренады.
We have examined, we studied the Grenada's exploration hydrocarbon potential, and we've concluded that we want to give it a go. We want to take on risks and explore hydrocarbon resources on the continental shelf of Grenada.
Global Petroleum Group является чисто гренадской компанией, зарегистрированной на Гренаде.
Global Petroleum Group is a Grenadian company incorporated in Grenada.
И работает в сфере нефтегазовой отрасли.
And it operates in the oil and gas industry.
По разработке, разведке и добыче углеводородов на шельфе Гренады.
So its purpose is to explore, develop, and produce hydrocarbon resources from the continental shelf of Grenada.
Let us talk about the initial bidding process that were able to give you those licensing rights for exploration.
Давайте поговорим о процессе, о тендерном процессе. Как вы смогли получить лицензии, получить права на эту разведку?
Ну, это мы получили права согласно Petroleum Act государства Гренада.
So we got these rights in accordance with the Grenada's Petroleum Act.
Подали заявку официально в правительство.
We've submitted an application, official formal application to the government.
Правительство рассмотрело.
So the government considered this application.
И выдало лицензию.
Согласно закону.
What year was that? So at what point did you initially submit the application, and what year was it approved? What was the timeline for approval?
В каком году это было? Когда вы подали заявку и в каком году она была одобрена?
Ну, заявку мы подали очень давно. Одобрена она еще была до 2008 года, первая заявка, потому что
The
территория...
application was submitted a long time ago. Our first application was submitted in the year 2008.
Потому что территория была по геологии не изведана. Мы проводили, будем говорить, предварительные геологические работы на шельфе Гренады.
So Grenada's territory was largely unexplored, and we have undertaken initial preliminary studies in the Grenadian maritime space.
Very well. Now let us go on to talk about the initial hydrocarbon discoveries. Back in 2008, sorry, our former Prime Minister indicated your company was able to identify significant, as what he said back then, significant oil and gas discoveries in Grenada's territorial waters. Can you talk about those oil discoveries that were found and the contractual arrangement that resulted from these initial discoveries? As we understand it, it was the Nutmeg well at the time. So can you talk about that initial discovery and the significance or implications of it? Because that was back in 2008. We are now in 2016. And it seems to be at a stalemate.
Ну, расскажите, пожалуйста, значит, в 2008 году тогдашний премьер-министр объявил о том, что вы открыли очень значительные запасы, а сейчас уже у нас какой, 16 или 26 год, и что произошло за это время, и почему как-то дальше никуда ничего не продвигается, и какие контрактные и юридические последствия возникли после этого открытия нефтегазовых ресурсов?
Ну, когда господин Бурке возглавлял нефтегазовую отрасль Гренады, мы вообще ничего не делали, мы стояли на месте.
When Mr. Burke was in charge of Grenada's oil and gas industry, we did absolutely nothing, we were standing still.
Потом, когда произошла смена, в правительство пришел новый министр, мы полностью проделали объем работы 2D, сами отстреляли сейсмику 3D и организовали первую буровую кампанию на шельфе Гренады на блоках.
So when the government changed, we were immediately able to get to work. We have processed all the 2D seismic and the three-dimensional seismic survey, and on the basis of those results, we have undertaken first exploratory drilling in Grenadian shelf within the so-called D blocks.
Для этого мы привлекли ведущие компании из нефтегазовой индустрии.
And in order to execute that campaign, we brought in the top-tier A-list actors of the international oil and gas industry.
Первая буровая компания у нас состояла из 2 скважин. Первая буровая компания была из скважин, получилось 2 скважины после бурения. Михаил.
Interpreter, I believe you're muted.
I don't know.
Yeah, interpreter, you are muted.
There's a problem online, maybe.
Yeah, interpreter, you are muted.
Вот это первое открытие, которое вы сделали, вы там открыли нефть или газ, и это открытие, как можно сравнить с похожими открытиями на континентальном шельфе соседних стран, типа Венесуэлы, Тринидада, Тобаго или Гаяны?
Первое, что мы открыли, это газ.
So I can say that we've discovered gas.
Что подтверждало коммерческие запасы.
And we've confirmed the commercial quantities.
Если сравнивать с Гаяной, с Тринидадом, с Венесуэлой, это разные геологии, хотя соседние все территории. Поэтому
compared to neighbors, our discovery is different because we've discovered that the geological composition of Grenada's subsurface is very different to the neighboring countries, even though they are close by in close proximity.
Но мы с полной уверенностью можем сказать, что это открытие является коммерческим и может уходить в производственную сферу.
And we can confidently say that this discovery is of commercial quantities, and we can confidently say that it can move into the development and production.
Что официально подтверждено аудиторскими заключениями международных аудиторских компаний.
And these conclusions are officially endorsed by international petroleum auditing companies.
So I think a confusion that the citizens of Grenada had about that initial gas discovery that you articulated was that the discovery happened, and so there was no follow-up on extraction of those resources. There was no follow-up on what happens with respect to having those resources then go on to whether that's some sort of oil and gas supply chain. So could you talk about what was the stalemate? What caused you to not go further? So you drilled initially and there was nothing else after that. Was it that the quantities were not significant enough to warrant further drilling? Or was it a case that there were specific bureaucratic issues with respect to the contractual arrangement that you have with the government of Grenada that caused
just let me
pause on that?
Pause you. Sorry to pause you. Like it's a lot for me to translate in one go.
Sure. Yes, sure.
Помогите нам понять непонимание, которое возникло у граждан Гренады. После этого открытия, которое вы сделали, похоже, что дальше ничего больше после этого не происходило. Никакой добычи за этим не последовало, никаких поставок в какую-то коммерческую систему поставок не произошло. Так что же случилось или не случилось? Почему дальше ничего не происходило? Вы там не обнаружили достаточно ресурсов, чтобы их стоило добывать, или возникли какие-то бюрократические препоны, связанные с вашими контрактными отношениями с государством?
Нет, первое, я сказал, что мы обнаружили коммерческие запасы, которые можно добывать. Это первое.
So, as I said, we've discovered commercial quantities that do warrant production.
И мы были готовы ко второй буровой кампании.
And we were ready to undertake the follow-up next second drilling campaign.
И хочу заметить, что все финансовые риски и все финансирование на себе несет компания Global Petroleum Group.
And I would like to note that all the financing, all the financial risks of this venture are borne entirely by Petroleum Group.
И когда мы были готовы ко второй буровой кампании, когда вот на этой стадии правительство, к сожалению, к нам ни разу не обратилось, поэтому мы готовили вторую буровую кампанию, выполняя свои прямые обязанности по контракту с государством Гренады. Когда мы были готовы, мы обратились к правительству, что мы готовы буриться.
So we started preparations for the second drilling campaign, and we contacted the government and informed them that we are ready. We're ready to start the second drilling campaign.
О чем мы правительство неоднократно уведомляли письменно.
And we sent numerous letters to the government to that effect.
Ответа не было ни одного.
Not a single reply was received from the government.
Просто хочу пояснить, что согласно контракту мы имеем дело только с государством, а в государстве за это отвечает министр нефти.
So I would like also to note that under the contract, we are dealing only with the government in this venture, and the government must have the petroleum minister appointed to handle these matters.
Так как нам не сказали, кто министр нефти, поэтому мы все письма писали на уважаемого господина премьер-министра Митчелла.
Since we had no indication and there was no appointment of the petroleum minister, we directed all our correspondence to the Prime Minister Mitchell.
Поэтому, когда мы были готовы, мы написали письма, одно письмо, второе, достаточно много, мы не получили ни одного вразумительного ответа о готовности правительства с нами сотрудничать, потому что правительство на ситуации по контракту является нашим партнером. Поэтому мы просто стояли и ждали, пока правительство нам даст какие-то разрешения. Потому что без правительства мы не имеем права буриться.
So we wrote one letter, two letters, many letters, and we did not receive any meaningful reply. And according to the contractual relationship that we have is with the government, they are our partner in this drilling program, and they have to issue various permits and do the regulatory oversight. And we've been standing still ever since because we just we cannot perform the drilling campaign by ourselves without any input or involvement from government.
И в этих письмах мы четко информировали правительство о наших планах, кто наши партнеры, сколько мы должны вложить во вторую буровую кампанию и какую выгоду от этого в первую очередь получит народ Гренады, правительство Гренады, а потом уже только компания GPG. Хотя деньги вкладывает вся компания.
We wrote numerous, we put numerous written representations to the government, informing them of our drilling campaign plans, of who our contractors are going to be, the budget for the second drilling campaign, the benefits that would come from the outcome of this drilling campaign to Grenada, the nation of Grenada, and the people of Grenada, and only then later, much later, to GPG, who will be funding all of that drilling campaign entirely with their own money.
Very well. Before we get to that, because we will be getting to the second drilling campaign, but before we get to that, you articulated the contract that you got into with the government of Grenada. Let us talk about, if you can, because I do know that some things are confidential, the revenue agreements as well as data sharing agreements and production sharing agreements with the government. Those three aspects, please.
Ну, давайте поговорим. Прежде чем мы пойдем обсуждать вторую буровую кампанию, давайте поговорим о контрактных отношениях между вами и государством. Если вы можете об этом говорить, это посвятите нас, пожалуйста, раздела выручки, то, как компания должна делиться геологическими данными с правительством и как оно должно делиться добычей, добытыми углеводородами.
Первое. Мы с правительством по вопросу правительства обязаны делиться геологическими данными, что мы делали на протяжении всего контракта. Все данные, которые у нас были по работе по геологии, мы официально передавали в правительство по акту передачи.
So under this contract, we have to share with the government all the geological data which is generated in the course of our operations. And we have been doing that throughout the duration of the contract when the government made these requests, and all the data available at the time was handed over and the receipt was obtained from the government.
Что касательно второго вопроса, я в рамках конфиденциальности цифры раскрыть не могу, но могу только, что правительство является прямым выгодополучателем от нефтегазового сектора в данный момент.
I am not at liberty to talk about specific figures, but I can say that the government of Grenada will be the first direct beneficiary of the economic benefits flowing out of this.
Okay, so you're not at liberty, obviously, to share what the production agreement or the revenue sharing agreement will be. So we will now move on to talk about the Nutmeg Well, which was the initial site, the initial block where that drilling occurred. There is reporting that the Nutmeg Well was capped. Can you confirm or deny that the Nutmeg Well was capped, or do you intend to return to the Nutmeg Well in the future?
Давайте, хорошо, вы не можете обсуждать конкретные цифры, давайте теперь перейдем к скважине Nutmeg, которую вы изначально пробурили. Утверждалось, что эта скважина была заглушена, и все. Вы можете сказать, это действительно так, или вы собираетесь к ней вернуться, открыть ее и из нее потом что-то добывать?
Объясню. На Атмике 2 было пробурено 2 скважины, ну, будем говорить, на достаточной глубинах, где было открытое месторождение. И по технологическим причинам мы должны ставить туда заглушку. Это по всем правилам бурения. Естественно, что после начала второй буровой кампании мы туда однозначно вернемся. У нас там в перспективе 6 объектов, которые заслуживают внимания, и мы планировали из них буриться на 3 объектах. Я могу только одно сказать, что мы там планировали разбуриться 5-6 скважин сделать. Ориентировочная стоимость бурения $350 миллионов. Мы привлекли project manager самой топовой компании.
Секунду. So we drilled 2 wells in the Nutmeg area, and once the drilling was completed, we plugged them. And it is something that you have to do technologically. You cannot leave the well open. You have to plug it to make sure that nothing leaks out of it. Nothing stops you coming back to this well later, removing the plug and operating it. So the second drilling campaign that we've planned included, returning to the Nutmeg prospects, because we've made a discovery there of the commercial deposits that could be developed. And as well as Nutmeg, we have identified 6 other prospective geological features under the seabed, and we intended to drill at least 3 of them in the course of the next drilling campaign that we were planning. And for that drilling campaign, we assembled a team of the top-tier international contractors. Продолжайте.
Могу только одно сказать, что мы привлекли на project manager компанию Schlumberger, Houston.
So we engaged Schlumberger out of Houston to be the project manager.
Компания в рекламе не нуждается.
So this company does not need any explanation of who they are.
На буровые работы мы обратились к компании Transocean, с кем у нас очень хорошие взаимоотношения.
So we were planning to use Transocean as a drilling contractor with whom we've developed excellent working relationship.
В планах должна была зайти буриться та же самая платформа DD3.
We were planning to use the same drilling rig which we used in the first campaign, and that was Development Driller 3.
У нас были точки под бурение уже.
So we had the coordinates of the next drilling locations.
Был сделан development план одной из ведущих тоже компаний.
A development plan for that area was produced by another highly reputable company.
О чем мы неоднократно уведомляли правительство государства Гренада.
And we informed the government of Grenada of that on numerous occasions.
Мы не получили ни одного ответа на все свои письма, то, что мы готовы буриться, и мы предлагали вместе, согласно контракта, приступить к выполнению буровой кампании на шельфе Гренады.
And we have not received a single reply to all of our communications where we repeatedly wrote to them that we are ready to start the drilling campaign and we need the government to facilitate the drilling campaign as a partner under the contract.
Understood. That is understood. And to start the drilling campaign for the benefit of the public, I suspect you would need to have all of the infrastructure, the extractive infrastructure in place. What is it do you need from the government of Grenada? You said you have not been receiving responses from them, but on a regulatory end, what is it do you need to start that process? Because you already have rights to those areas. So what is it that you would need from the government in order to have the infrastructure in place to begin that process of drilling?
Ну, для того, чтобы начинать бурение, я полагаю, ведь вам нужно иметь какую-то инфраструктуру для этого всего. И объясните, пожалуйста, как это работает. Ведь у вас уже есть права, и что вам необходимо от правительства для того, чтобы вся эта инфраструктура заработала?
Правительство в данной ситуации выступает партнером в этом проекте, и мы вместе работаем на одну и ту же цель.
So in this project, the government is our partner, and we are both working towards the same goal.
Правительство в данной ситуации должно выполнять свои прямые функции, то бишь выдавать разрешение на заход платформы, дать указания по областям.
The government must perform its direct explicit function. It has to issue permits for the entry of the drilling platform into Grenadian territory.
Давать разрешение на заход судов.
It has to give permission for various supply vessels to come and go.
Давать команду аэропорту на авиасообщения, на буровые платформы.
The aviation authorities have to approve flights to the drilling platform.
Уведомлять все международные организации, что проводятся буровые работы, чтобы закрыть данный район для судоходства.
To notify all the international organizations about drilling activities taking place at a specific location to inform shipping to avoid or bypass that area.
То есть выполнять свои прямые функции вообще, в принципе, чем должно заниматься государство и правительство.
So these are the functions that we expect the government to perform. These specific functions, which are that's what government is there for. These are the functions that the government is supposed to perform.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the other parts of that, our research found that there was a need for you to have a prepayment arrangement with the government of Grenada. Can you talk about what that prepayment arrangement really is, and what are the obligations under that prepayment arrangement?
Мы в ходе подготовки к этому интервью наткнулись на информацию о том, что существуют договоренности об авансировании. Вы можете сказать, что это за договоренности, в чем они заключаются и какие обязательства есть у сторон по этой договоренности об авансировании?
Могу. Правительство Гренады в письменной форме обратилось в компанию сделать аванс в рамках контракта между компанией GPG и государством.
So the government approached GPG and asked for advance of money to be made in the framework of these contractual relationships between the government and the company.
Мы не знаем, по каким причинам понадобились средства, может, на социальные программы, может, еще на что-то. Это не наше дело. И компания GPG оказала в рамках контракта перевод $20 миллионов на счет казначейства правительства Гренады.
We don't know why the government felt that they did so quickly and for what purposes, maybe social policy, but they approached us and asked if we can advance this money to the government on account of settlements under the contract. And we felt that we could do that, and we've advanced money to the government, and we paid $20 million to the treasury of Grenada.
Это нормальные партнерские отношения в рамках такого бизнеса.
So it's normal in course of good partnership relationships between the counterparties in this business.
And when was that payment advanced? What year did the government make that? I don't want to say demand, but yes, demand. Well, not demand, but make that request of that $20 million. What year was that? Let's start there. What year was that?
А в каком году это было? В каком году правительство сделало такое требование? Не знаю, не требование, просьба, запрос. Когда они попросили эти деньги и когда вы их перевели? В каком году это было?
Я сейчас могу затрудняться точно в датах. Слишком много событий происходило. Слишком много платежей. Но это точно...
I cannot tell you that from the top of my head right now.
Надо поднять финансовые документы. Просто по тем временам мы в проект вложили на сегодняшний момент на Гренаду около $200 миллионов.
But in the framework of the sort of larger things, we've invested total of $200 million into this project in Grenada so far.
То есть это все деньги рисковые. И в этих общих суммах были 20 миллионов, которые мы в рамках контракта перевели на счет правительства. Ну, если вам будет интересно, мы поднимем платежный документ, покажем, не вопрос.
So this money is the money that we risk. So it's a risky money. We invested at our own risk, and in the framework of this 200 billion, there was 20 million that was advanced to the government. So if you're interested, we can we can look through the paperwork and give you details of when that took place.
Yes, that is something I would be interested in.
Да, это мне будет очень интересно, да.
Да, это официальный документ, который забалансированы, отражены в аудиторских отчетах компании.
So these funds are properly recorded in the financial documents of the company as funds made to the government.
Да, тем более аудитор, у нас один из аудиторов, это гренадская тоже компания, находится на Гренаде.
And our auditor is a Grenadian-based auditor.
Okay. But just quick follow-up to the second drilling campaign. Can you inform the Grenadian public about, in respect of raw quantities that you estimate is available within your area of remit? How much quantities of natural gas does your company estimate is available as potential for drilling?
Вы можете сказать гренадской общественности в вашей лицензионной территории, какой потенциал, сколько примерно, какой потенциал газа, какие объемы газа, на какие объемы газа можно рассчитывать как коммерческие объемы, которые можно добыть?
Ну, смотрите, давайте так. Буду говорить немножко расплывчато, потому что некоторые позиции я не имею права раскрывать. На сегодняшний день.
I'll be somewhat hazy and nebulous in my answer because I cannot disclose certain things in detail.
Потому что мы планировали пробурить 5-6 скважин на сегодняшний день.
We were planning to drill 5-6 wells as planned stand right.
Которые должны показать потенциал до 60.
That this drilling campaign was supposed to confirm the commercial quantities of up to 6 trillion cubic feet.
Это после второй только фазы бурения. А так у нас по плану на блоках D, по производственному плану 74 скважин.
So and we're talking only about the second exploratory campaign. The development plan for the entire D blocks envisages drilling additional 74 wells.
Это на протяжении жизни всей лицензии.
And that's over the lifetime of the license.
Поверьте мне, это достаточно огромный объем.
So believe me, this is a very, very massive amount of work, and very massive amount of resources.
For the second drilling campaign that you intend to embark upon, can you confirm or deny that you have partnered with a Nigerian investor to engage in that second phase of drilling? I know you mentioned the Texas folks, but there have been media reports that you've also partnered with a Nigerian investor, Nigerian company. Can you confirm, or are you in a position to confirm or deny whether or not you're also having an arrangement with them?
Вы можете сказать по поводу вот этой вашей второй буровой компании, у вас есть какие-то договоренности с нигерийской компанией, с нигерийскими инвесторами? Вы упоминали уже партнеров из Техаса, но вы можете подтвердить или опровергнуть, есть ли у вас какие-то договоренности с нигерийской компанией?
Сразу опровергаю, у нас нет никаких договоренностей с нигерийскими компаниями.
We have no arrangements with Nigerian company.
У нас все наши подрядчики находятся в американских компаниях.
All our contractors are US-based companies.
Я понимаю, к чему задали этот вопрос, прежде много было шума.
I understand why you asked this question because there was a lot of noise in the media.
A lot of misinformation, I would say.
Да, много дезинформации.
Я не знаю, может, Гренада полюбила так Нигерию, я ж не могу с этим ничего сделать.
So maybe Grenada is falling in love with Nigeria. So that's why people are so excited about it. Nothing I can do about it.
Well, thank you.
Опровергаю, нет. Наши все партнеры, это Шлюмберже, Трасошин, Дегон, Махнотон, все компании известные, это все подрядные организации.
So I do deny this. Our contractors are Schlumberger, Digolier and McNaughton, Transocean, and they are all contractors and they're all US organizations.
Также, чтобы вы понимали масштабы запасов, чтобы народ Гренады понял, у нас мы проводили переговоры по монетизации газа с крупными компаниями, мировыми компаниями типа Визена, и получили от них предложение по плавучим СПГ на шельфе Гренады, о чем мы тоже уведомили правительство.
As for the volume of resources, we've done a lot of negotiations with the very large global companies about the offtake of the gas to be produced from Grenadian waters. Companies like Wizon, and who made an offer to us to bring in the floating natural gas liquefaction facility to Grenadian waters, and we also informed the government of that.
Только такая одна позиция стоит порядка 2-2,5 миллиарда долларов.
So one such facility alone costs $2 to $2.5 billion.
Также компания GPG подписала, будем так назовем, меморандум о понимании, соглашение с национальной газовой компанией Trinidad Tobago.
And GPG also signed a memorandum of understanding with the national gas company of Trinidad and Tobago.
Потому что все-таки это наши соседи, уважаемые люди, и люди, которые находятся давно в нефтегазовой отрасли.
The reasons for that is, first of all, they are our neighbors with whom we respect and enjoy excellent relationship, and they have been involved in the oil and gas industry for a long, long time.
В том году мы тоже встречались с НЖС, встречались с министром энергетики Тринидад Тобаго. Достаточно конструктивные были переговоры по работе, совместные переговоры. Мы даже пригласили несколько членов совещательного комитета председателям посетить это мероприятие, эти переговоры, но они почему-то отказались.
So we held talks with the national gas company and with the Minister of Energy in Trinidad. We held a lot of joint talks with them, and we've also extended an offer to the members of the advisory committee in Grenada to join us, but for whatever reason they declined.
Yes, so, and we will get to one of the recurring themes in our conversation so far is a lack of communication with the current government of Grenada. So let us talk about that. If you can translate that part, and then I will get to the second part of the question.
Похоже, что у нас возникает уже повторяющаяся тема, да, вот в нашей беседе. Это отсутствие нормальных коммуникаций, нормальной связи с правительством Гренады. Давайте поговорим об этом.
Давайте.
So there are allegations, for example, that GPG are withholding information from the government. Let's speak to that specific allegation that some members of the administration have made, that you are withholding information. In fact, the Prime Minister said upon assumption of office that they found no documentation with respect to Grenada's hydrocarbon industry. Let us talk about that. Are you withholding information from the government of Grenada?
Значит, постоянно утверждалось, что вы не предоставляете правительству Гренады никакой информации. Когда нынешняя администрация пришла к власти, премьер-министр заявил, что они вообще не могут найти никаких документов, касающихся нефтегазовой тематики. Вы можете пролить на это какой-то свет? Вы действительно придерживаете информацию от правительства?
Мы информацию от правительства никогда не придерживали и не придерживаем. И все, что мы делали, наработки, будем так говорить, мы не разделяем все это, мы работаем с государством вне политики, сразу скажу. Это первое. Мы все документы...
We are not withholding anything, and all the work that we have ever done with the government, we've always reported and shared information with. And we are not differentiating whether it's this government or the previous government or the next government. For us, government is government. It's one entity.
И мы все документы передавали в правительство Гренады под акт приема передачи официально.
So all the documentation was handed to the government of Grenada, and we have signed receipts for that.
Что творится уже с этими документами внутри правительства, поверьте мне, нас это не касается.
What happens with all this documentation and information inside the government is beyond us. It's nothing to do with us, and we have no knowledge what they do with it.
Вот это нынешнее правительство, оно сначала их теряет, потом находит, потом опять теряет, потом опять находит. Я не знаю, может, им так нравится терять, находить, это меня же тоже не касается. Но мы им написали письмо официально, что мы готовы сотрудничать, и мы обязаны по запросу правительства передать эти все материалы. У нас слишком много архивных материалов, и о чем мы, это правительство, официально уведомляли письмами, что мы говорили, что мы готовы к сотрудничеству. Вы нам только скажите, как мы будем сотрудничать и что передать на сегодняшний момент.
So we wrote on numerous occasions to the government that we are ready to. Start again. The current government, the present incumbent government, seems to be in the habit of losing documents, then finding documents, then losing documents again. But again, this is nothing to do with us, and we're not going there. We always inform the government that we are ready to update them, we are ready to provide information. We just need them to reach out to us.
Ну, смотрите, если я не ошибаюсь, с июля по 22 года по октябрь 23 года правительство на нас вообще не выходило на связь. Мы спокойно готовили большую вторую буровую кампанию.
So between June of 2022 and March 2023, the government did not contact us at all. And we were very busy preparing for the second drilling campaign.
Мы о чем уведомили правительство, написали, ребят, мы готовы двигаться, поехали, вместе, садимся, вырабатываем.
No, go ahead, I'm here, go ahead, please.
Продолжайте.
Да, мы передали, в октябре 23 года мы передали правительству общий отчет о проделанной работе за 10 лет. И пакет документов где-то, если память не изменяет, около 100 страниц. Это общий отчет работы компании.
So in October of 2023, we submitted to the government a general summary of all the work that we have undertaken in the 10 previous years to that, together with the supporting documents. And off the top of my head, I can say that that initial volume was about 100 pages.
Поэтому я не понимаю, почему они не могут найти у себя в правительстве документы, которые там должны официально храниться в официальном хранилище. То есть мы за это не отвечаем.
I don't know why the government cannot locate in its file archives the files that are supposed to be there. It's not our responsibility, it's not our remit to look after the files that are kept in the government.
Сложно ответить на этот вопрос.
Okay. Now, the government of Grenada established a technical working group. From what you've articulated so far, there has not been much communication with them. Now, let us talk about this current working group and how it functions within the established contractual arrangements that you have with government of Grenada.
Давайте поговорим об углеводородной технической рабочей группе. Как мы понимаем, у вас с ними особого контакта нету, но как эта группа, где она находится в рамках ваших контрактных отношений с правительством?
В рамках контрактных отношений с правительством эта группа не находится нигде.
This working group is not part of our contractual relationship with the government at all.
Нет. Мы работаем.
It's not part of the relationship with the government at all.
Мы работаем только с правительством. Правительство является нашим партнером.
We only work with the government, and our partner under these arrangements is the government.
Right. Okay. So the working group, they have not reached out to GPG at all. They have not had any conversations with you all. Have you had any recent meetings with the government of Grenada? I know that you said you have not received any communication, but have you explained the urgency of what you have been trying to accomplish with respect to those the second phase of drilling?
Окей, ну, значит, хорошо. А вы как-то вы хоть, как недавно общались с этой рабочей группой? И вообще, какие у вас были недавние встречи с правительством? Потому что вы объясняли им срочность уже, которая возникает вокруг организации этой второй буровой кампании.
Вы знаете, если бы они понимали о срочности этой второй буровой кампании, мы бы уже находились на другом уровне взаимоотношений. И уже бы государство Гренада, народ Гренады уже бы прочувствовал на себе, будем так говорить, эти результаты, то, что было в предыдущие годы. Мы им это объясняли в письменной форме, мы это объясняли, как вам сказать, в устной форме. Но, к сожалению, чем занимается эта рабочая группа с господином Бурки и с другими товарищами, мне неизвестно. Но чем они занимаются? Только тем, что пока мы не можем начать вторую буровую кампанию даже за свой счет. Вот чем они реально занимаются, мне сложно судить.
If they understood the urgency, we would be having, having very different conversations by now. We would have already have accomplished what we set out to do, and the Grenada, the whole nation, would have been at a wholly different level. What this group does, I don't know, but we are not able to perform any of our work. That's why we're not able to perform what we're supposed to do. We're not able to drill at our own expense. We're going to be funding this drilling campaign.
Миш, я, наверное, думаю, что господин Гурки, наверное, документ до сих пор ищет. 4 года.
But maybe Mr. Burke is still searching for some documents.
Well, we will be following up with Mr. Burke to ask him if they're still searching for documents. But under the contractual arrangements, if the government does not meet their end of the bargain, what legal steps can GPG take to ensure that the government fulfills those regulatory aspects as required in the contractual arrangement that you have with them to ensure that they comply?
Если правительство не будет выполнять своих обязательств по этим договоренностям и не будет оказывать вам никакое содействие, то что вы можете сделать? Как вы можете принудить их выполнять свои обязательства?
Ну, во-первых, правительство, и могу повториться, это наш партнер. Я все-таки надеюсь на разумность этого правительства. Это первое. Второе. Оно должно понимать, что оно работает на людей Гренады, на государство Гренаду и ради Гренады. Если они этого не понимают, мне сложно это им уже объяснять. Это мы им писали в письмах, что первый выгодополучатель – это государство и народ Гренады.
The government is our partner, and I do hope that they do come to their senses and they start to appreciate.
So, given the challenges with that you're alleging that you're having with the government of Grenada currently, let us talk about the contractual arrangements. If government does not meet its obligations under the current contractual arrangements as exists with the Global Petroleum Group, what recourse do you have? What action can you take to essentially cause the government to cooperate in those areas as required by the contract?
Значит, в том, что касается ваших контрактных взаимоотношений, если правительство не сотрудничает, если оно не выполняет своих обязательств, какие меры защиты права у вас есть, как вы можете принудить их, призвать их к ответу и заставить их выполнять свои обязательства?
Ну, смотрите, правительство в данном в данных контрактных обязательствах должно быть комфортным партнером. Это раз. Это первое.
So in the framework of this contractual relationship, the government has to be a good, respectable partner.
Второе, правительство должно себе отдавать отчет, что оно работает на государство Гренады и на народов Гренады. А компания Petroleum Group взяла на себя все финансовые, производственные риски, экологические риски для развития этого проекта, опять же, на благо Гренады и народа Гренады.
Secondly, the government has to understand that they are working in the interest of the nation and the people of Grenada. And they have to appreciate that Global Petroleum Group invested money and took on all the financial, technological, and environmental risks to further this project for the ultimate benefit of the people of Grenada.
Здесь должен работать в первую очередь здравый смысл.
So common sense has to have a major play in all of this.
Потому что мы выполняем общую задачу ради территории государства Гренада.
And that we are on the same page and that we are working towards the same goal for the benefit of the country and the nation of Grenada.
Я реально не понимаю этой позиции. Есть гренадская компания, которая уже вложила деньги, которая взяла на себя все риски, которая открыла месторождение, которая готова его развивать с нормальными партнерами. Почему правительство этого делать не хочет, я не знаю. Я догадываюсь, почему оно делать не хочет. Но почему оно делает, это мое мнение.
You have a Grenadian company that has invested a lot of money, that has already done a lot of substantial work, made a discovery of resources, is ready to develop those resources with the respectable top-tier international partners at its own expense. And why is it not happening? Why are we not doing this? I don't understand. I have my own ideas about why it's not happening, but I still don't know.
Я думаю, что в любом другом месте компания с такими потенциалами, возможностями и с таким желанием работать воспринималась бы на ура. Почему вот это правительство у нас не воспринимает, только можно догадываться. Ну, я знаю, пускай сами думают, почему так происходит. Я думаю, у многих ответ на этот вопрос есть в голове.
In any other place, such a company would be welcomed with open arms. Why is it not the case under this present administration? I don't know, but I have my ideas.
Are you willing to divulge perhaps what are those some of those ideas that you are thinking about as to why that is?
Вы можете поделиться вашими догадками, о чем вы догадываетесь, какие у вас мысли есть?
Слушайте, я не знаю, как сказать. Это опять же лично мое мнение, потому что вот я могу просто привести примеры. Когда мы начинали работать, Бурки был министром нефти. За 4 года мы стояли, мы вообще ничего не сделали. Он придумал всякие различные истории, встречался, опять же придумал какие-то комитеты, комиссии, делал все, чтобы ничего не делать.
When we started a long time ago, Mr. Burke was the Minister of Energy. And for 4 years, we were not able to do anything. He constantly was coming up with various reasons, was convening all sorts of committees and groups. And for 4 years, we did nothing. We achieved absolutely nothing in those 4 years.
Вот да, в тот период времени он искал компромат на нас постоянно. Везде это было любимое занятие.
And his favorite thing to do at the time was to look for dirt.
Искал компромат на всех. Это было его любимое занятие. Сейчас его любимое занятие искать документы.
And he not just us, he was looking for dirt on everyone. Now his favorite thing to do is to look for documents.
Предлагаем работать, развивать проект, добывать углеводороды. Остальное я не знаю, как это еще объяснить более корректно.
But we are out to develop projects. We are out to explore and develop hydrocarbon resources.
Ну, смотрите.
I don't know why we're not on the same page.
Ну, смотрите, не помню, то ли в апреле, то ли в мае, когда была Карибская конференция по углеводородам. А кто-то там от Гренады ездил, кто-то выступал.
Early in the year, in April or May, there was some sort of Caribbean conference on hydrocarbons. And there was a Grenadian representative out there.
Они упомянули почему-то о потенциале Гренаде, об огромном.
They did mention a huge potential in Grenada.
Они начали от два месторождения, что там есть скважина.
They not to discovery.
Вот пускай эти джентльмены объяснят, почему они не упомянули компанию Global Petroleum Group, которая вложила деньги в разработку нефтегазового потенциала. Это первое. И второе.
So the first question, why do these gentlemen omit to mention that it was Global Petroleum Group that invested money in discovering this field?
И второе. Эти джентльмены заявили об огромном потенциале Гренады. Как они могут заявить, когда они потеряли документы и их не могли найти?
Secondly, these gentlemen talk about huge potential of Grenada, but how can they talk about potential of Grenada if they've lost the files and cannot find them?
Ответ очень прост.
So it all falls into places.
Поэтому с правительством Гренады надо сотрудничать, и чтобы, главное, у них было понимание и желание. Вот и все. Больше ничего не надо. Мы от них не просим ни денег, ни вложений. Они только получают...
The government of Grenada needs to appreciate this, cooperate with us. That's all we want from them. We're not asking them to invest money. We're not asking them to do any work.
Вот представьте, если бы мы начали буриться, как мы хотели 22-23 год, потому что бурильная компания требует очень тщательной подготовки и очень длительного времени. Это не так, что сегодня дали команду, мы завтра буримся. Это реально длительный период времени. И самый инвестиционно затратный.
The drilling campaign that we were planning to do in year 2022-23 is not something that happens overnight. It takes a long time to prepare, put together. It's not something that you can start the next day after the war go.
И вот представьте, если бы мы сейчас заканчивали, если бы мы нормально работали с правительством, мы сейчас бы заканчивали вторую буровую кампанию, я гарантирую, мы бы максимально усилили свою позицию в нефтегазовой отрасли. Что бы это дало для Гренады? Это поток инвестиций, поток компаний. Я не знаю, желающих много было бы приехать там поработать. Это совсем новый индустриальный цикл по работе.
So if our efforts were not derailed, we would by now we would have been finishing this campaign. We would have already had results. Grenada would already be, at a very, very different level. The potential, the proven potential of Grenada would have been massive by now.
И в планах GPG было набрать молодых специалистов, инженеров и отправить их на обучение в Тринидад, в Америку, чтобы они к тому моменту, когда уже будет производственный цикл, гренадцы имели своих технических специалистов. Пускай их будет немного, но это был бы первый шаг ко второму потенциалу образования и другой уровень развития молодежи.
By now, if we were not thwarted in our efforts, by now we would already be in the process of selecting young, bright Grenadians to send them to study, for petroleum industry qualifications in US, to prepare them to work in the production, which would have been imminent. That first cohort might have been small, but it would have been a start of massive upskilling of Grenadian workforce.
И опять же, все расходы по обучению берет на себя компания GPG.
Once again, all the expenditure of training these young specialists would have been borne by GPG.
Почему правительство таких элементарных вещей не понимает?
I struggle to understand why the government does not appreciate these very basic and straightforward things.
Have you ever had any conversation or any communication with Mr. Burke when he was Minister of Finance under a previous administration? Now we know that he's part of this, the advisory group currently. I believe he chairs the advisory group. What has Mr. Burke articulated to you when you met with him, what difficulties he's having with Global Petroleum Group?
У вас наверняка были встречи и беседы с господином Бурке, когда он был министром финансов при прошлом правительстве. Я знаю, что сейчас он является председателем этой рабочей группы, но тогда он был министром. Он вам объяснял, какие сложности, какие проблемы возникали, почему были сложности с тем, чтобы начать дать вам работать?
Ну, ничего никогда не объясняет. Он нам Он тогда написал несколько писем непонятного содержания, опять создал какую-то группу советников, и все. Мы с ним встречались несколько раз. Он Мы просто при нем стояли, без объяснений. В принципе, как мы сейчас стоим, без объяснений, не знаю почему. То есть я не знаю.
He wrote a couple of very nebulous, sort of very woolly letters, and he convened some sorts of groups or committees. And at that time, we were just standing still and not doing anything without any concrete and specific explanation, just like we are now.
Я им всем говорил, идите народу Гренады, объясните, почему мы не работаем, почему мы не занимаемся разведкой добычей углеводородов. Вот как это объяснить? Мы готовы, финансы готовы, мы финансы подготовили, опять назад откатились, еще раз подготовили, опять стоим. Все, я не понимаю этой логики, что он хочет. Ну, в принципе, догадываюсь, опять же. Опять же,
I challenge them to explain to the nation, to the people of Grenada, why a company that is ready with the money, with all the drilling equipment, painted up, why is it drilling? Is it not doing anything? Why is it standing still? What is the reason for that? Again, I don't know, but I have my ideas.
Okay. Now let us talk about the intellectual property arrangements, the contractual arrangements that speaks to the specific intellectual property obligations that GPG is required or not to share with the government of Grenada.
Давайте поговорим об интеллектуальной собственности на геологические данные, которые GPG обязаны или не обязаны делиться с правительством Гренады.
Okay.
Let's go ahead.
Yeah, so what are the parameters of that intellectual property sharing and data sharing? What does the contract state with respect to your obligations under that specific clause?
В каких параметрах это все существует? Какие обязательства у вас есть по всем вот этим пунктам ваших договоренностей?
У нас ни пункта, ни договоренности, у нас есть контракт, где все прописано, что мы по запросу правительства передаем документы. В принципе, запросы мы все документы передавали в правительство в рабочем порядке. Это вообще не проблема.
So the clause is very simple, that we are supposed to hand over the documents when the request is made. And the documents were handed over when requests were made. There were absolutely no problem about that.
Мы про этому правительству мы сказали, что мы готовы помочь, мы готовы это сделать. Но поверьте мне, что на сегодняшний момент поднимать опять и тратить время на дубликаты, это слишком затратная по времени позиция. Все, что можно было в контракте, мы им передали.
So everything that needed to be given to the government under that contract, we have given it to them. But now producing copies of this massive volume of information and data is a very laborious, time-consuming and expensive exercise.
Они там запросили кассеты по сейсмике, которые они потеряли, кстати.
So they asked us to give them copies of 3D seismic tapes. And the one set that they were given, they've already lost.
Мы им совещательный комитет, приезжайте, они у нас лежат на хранилище, платите за них, пожалуйста, выбирайте себе любую фирму, кто их будет там делать дубликат, мы с удовольствием опять же передадим. Они нам, по большому счету, для работы уже не нужны. Это история, это вчерашний день.
So we told the advisory committee, by all means, come to the storage facility where the tapes are kept, select the ones that you like, engage the technical contractor who will do copies for you. But because we don't need them for work anymore. They already serve their purpose for us.
Поэтому мы готовы еще раз их передать, но уже в рамках контракта на сегодняшний день. У нас было, когда они написали в ноябре мы от них в том году получили письмо, что они признают наконец-то действующий контракт. Мы им написали в ответ, что окей, хорошо. Тут же мы написали, что готовы к сотрудничеству, к движению, и опять тишина.
But we always stressed that the government is entitled to all this information and data in the framework of the contract. And in the middle of November of last year, the government finally confirmed on record that they recognize the validity of that contract. We immediately replied to them, thank you very much. Let's now make arrangements for you to, get copies of all the data that you are requesting. And that came at the end of November, and we've heard nothing from them since.
Да, мы 25 ноября 2025 года написали им, да, что мы после получения письма, что они подтвердили легитимность контракта, мы им написали, что мы готовы передать еще раз документы в рамках контракта, проблем нет. И опять от правительства тишина.
So in November of 2025, in November of last year, we informed the government that we are happy, we are ready to give them all this intellectual data in the framework of the contract, within the parameters of the contract. And they finally confirmed on record that they recognize the validity of this contract. And we immediately responded to them saying, right, you're very welcome to come and collect the data that you want. And we have had no response from them ever since.
Mm-hmm. So the last communication that you had with the government has been relative to them acknowledging the validity of the contract, but they have not reached out to have any meeting with you or anything since November 2025.
А вот после того письма, где они вам подтвердили, ваша вот последняя переписка с ними, где они подтвердили действительность контракта, у вас были с ними какие-то коммуникации или встречи после ноября 2025 года?
Официальных встреч никаких не было.
No, was none.
Okay, so absolutely no meetings there. Now, let us go on to talk about specific drilling blocks that you're licensed to drill in Grenada. How much areas? I believe they're called blocks. Correct me if I'm wrong. How many areas that you are licensed to drill, and what is the duration of that contract? The timeline for drilling.
Блоках, вот где, на которые у вас есть лицензия бурить. Я как понимаю, они называются блоками, это блоки территории. Каких они размеров, где вы можете буриться и какова длительность этих лицензий?
Смотрите, первое. Блоки, на которых мы боремся, блоки D, зарезервированы, знаем, были блоки B и C. Блоки D площадь 2500 километров, которые мы бурили, кстати, и открыли месторождения. Остальные блоки общей массы получается 7500 километров квадратных.
So we were drilling inside the set of D blocks, which have a total surface area of 2,500 square kilometers, and there were B and C blocks reserved for us, and the combined total area of all these blocks is approximately 7,500 kilometers.
Мы начали буриться на блоках D, потому что они находятся ближе, будем так говорить, к Венесуэле и к Тринидад-Тобаго, то есть один район, ну, потому что так получается более перспективный. И поэтапно был план освоить блоки D и потихоньку развиваться уже наверх.
So we decided to start with the D blocks because they are located closest to Venezuela and Trinidad, who have a known and proven hydrocarbon potential. So we thought that we will start with the D blocks, and as we explore and develop them, we move further north to B and C blocks.
Потому что на блоках D мы сделали сейсмику, я вам говорил, 2D, 3D пробурились, и также провели геологическое изучение блоков B и C, которые были зарезервированы за компанию.
So we have collected all the available seismic that was done in D blocks. That's 2D, two-dimensional seismic. We have commissioned our own three-dimensional survey over the D blocks, which informed the location of the expected reading. Have also done studies of the B and C blocks.
Okay, very well. Mr. Vasilev, is there anything in this conversation that we talked about? Is there any other thing that we did not mention that you feel the Grenadian public need to know in respect of this current moment? Because everything that you articulated in the conversation here really speaks to a lack of communication and a stalemate, really. But is there anything else that you feel the Grenadian people need to know about the next steps for you as Global Petroleum Group in getting the regulatory clearance to begin to do the work that you really want to get started on?
Ну, давайте спросим, есть ли что-нибудь, что вы от себя хотите сказать народу Гренады? Мы уже в ходе этого обсуждения, значит, похоже, приходим к выводу, что две главных проблемы – это то, что не хватает, нет нормальных коммуникаций и существует какая-то патовая ситуация. Какие ваши следующие шаги? Куда мы дальше двигаемся со всем этим? Вы как Global Petroleum Group, как компания, и мы все, куда мы движемся дальше? Какие наши следующие шаги?
Смотрите, наши следующие шаги, они все очень стандартные. Мы написали много обращений в правительство Гренады, что мы готовы были приступать к второй буровой кампании. Почему нет коммуникации с нами, я не знаю.
So the steps are pretty straightforward. We wrote many notices and applications to the government informing them that we need to get the second drilling campaign underway. Why we had no responses to that, I don't know.
Я могу только сказать от себя, народу Гренады, что если бы мы работали продуктивно с правительством Гренады, то сейчас бы мы получили, я бы хотел сказать, очень хорошие результаты и потенциал развития на несколько поколений вперед. Это я могу точно сказать.
One thing I can say to the people of Grenada that if we were able to work unimpeded without any hurdles being put in our way, by now we would have already had on our hands a economic potential that would have been enough for the next several generations of Grenadians.
То, что мы стоим 4 года, практически 4 года экономика Гренады ушла назад. Вот и все.
But we've been standing still for 4 years, so basically think of it that economy of Grenada has been made to stand still for 4 years.
Мне это сложно объяснить. То есть это логическим мышлением правильно не подходит под эту штуку.
So there are no reasonable, rational, logical explanations that can be given to this.
Зато я слышал то, что на этой конференции было сказано, что они собираются проводить какие-то тендеры на каких-то блоках, что-то делать. Только я не знаю, на каких блоках они собираются проводить тендеры, и какой инвестор придет на те блоки, которые уже проинвестированы. Ни один разумный инвестор это делать не будет. 100%.
They also mentioned in this conference that they are planning to run tenders and they are planning to bring investors to some blocks. But what blocks are they thinking of bringing the investors to? And are they trying to bring investors to blocks that have already been invested in by somebody else? I don't know how they're thinking of achieving this.
То есть я надеюсь, что правительство Гренады хватит благоразумия и не делать глупых шагов.
So I hope that the government of Grenada, has enough common sense not to make any stupid steps.
Okay. Mr. Edward, thank you so much for appearing on the Bubb Report this week, sir.
Эдуард, большое спасибо за то, что вы согласились появиться на передаче Bubb Report на этой неделе. Большое спасибо вам, сэр.
Вам большое спасибо за уделенное время.
Yes, and thank you very much for your time.
Да, и что мне хочется пожелать, согласно ваших слов, народу Гренады, это процветание, счастья, добра и всего самого наилучшего.
So, and I would like to wish to the people of Grenada a lot of many happy returns, prosperity, and happiness, and all the best.
Гренады впереди большие перспективы. Я на это очень сильно надеюсь.
And Grenada has a lot to look forward to. I am very, very confident of that.
Со своей стороны мы сделаем все возможное, чтобы это получилось как можно быстрее.
And on our part, we will do all we can to make it happen. The sooner, the better.
Большое спасибо.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much, sir.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
Hi everyone. The Bubb Report is committed to being fearless, balanced, and independent, bringing you the stories that matter most without compromise. Now do us a favor. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. You can also watch us on GBN TV every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Catch us on WPG10 television every Sunday at 8 p.m. Your support helps us to keep journalism free from bias and influence. And together, we can make sure every voice is heard and every fact is verified. Thanks for watching.
Tell us, a commissioner of police, tell a politician, back off. You have no knowledge of the law. You have no knowledge of law enforcement. You cannot force my officers to do the wrong thing.
But that is somebody's son. That is somebody's child. That is part of a family. And I think that is the part that they are missing out.
Because E and F are apt to be used oppressively.
It's like because we don't see disabled people as sexual beings, which is ridiculous.
You mean they don't want to listen to your version of science? They have their own science. You have your science.
What we need to do is teach people to think and not what to think.
Today, it's too bad that everybody do what they want.
If I could forgive Bernard Ford, then I could forgive Bob Morris too. And today, on this day, I no more have anything in my heart for what he did.
The education system has to be very fluid and dynamic because we're living in very different and changing times.
Treating all your citizens equally, all your citizens fairly, recognizing each group, not discriminating against one or the other.